Item 13, file number 251217. Communication from the Department of Public Works providing a comprehensive review of the City of Milwaukee's snow plowing policies and procedures. This file is sponsored by Alderman Brower. Alderman Brower, did you want to say anything before we have the department speak?
I did, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. And this might be, actually, I think this is my second piece of legislation, second file I've introduced, so hopefully I don't mess this up. I introduced this file in the attempt to, and I see there's some folks from DPW here. I really appreciate everybody and all the hard work they've been doing. I introduced this file a couple weeks ago to basically preemptively, like, get a discussion going, get something on record here, get a link that we could send out constituents regarding, the city's snow plowing operations, things that people are concerned about, things that people want to see improved, what's working. So we sent out an e-notify as well to our constituents asking for thoughts, questions, suggestions, concerns, things they wanted me to bring to Department of Public Works regarding snowfall. Now, I didn't anticipate when I introduced this that we would have had a giant snowstorm already this year. So when I want to say that I was texted by some folks over at DPW to join one of our salt trucks on Saturday afternoon during the storm. I really appreciated that opportunity. Got a chance to go out and have a lot of questions already answered, but I wanted to bring all them to the table, get this on record, and get this video out to constituents so we could start conversation and people could have their questions and concerns answered here. So with that, I wanted to I'll pass out to Danielle, who already received some of the initial questions we received, and then I'll have more questions after that, Madam Chair, if that works.
All right.
Good morning, Madam Chair, committee members. Danielle Rodriguez. I'm Department of Public Works Director of Operations, and I also oversee our snow and ice operations. So as Alderman Bauer indicated, I will do a very high-level overview, hopefully hitting on as much as I can, and of course, any questions or anything I miss. This is an extremely complex operation. It has lots of moving pieces, and there is a lot of if this, then that's. And so I will do my best to do broad strokes, but if there are specific questions, obviously I'll try to answer them. So I am going to start with our service levels. There's various service levels. Our first service level is usually what we would call a pre-treat service level. That usually comes in the form of brining. That's when you see the white stripes that go on the street. That is done as a preventative measure that prevents snow from sticking to the pavement and creating the inability to move it. It's not 100%. It won't, prevent all bond, but it is a really good protector and barrier first level. After that, if there's more snow than would be handled by a pre-treat, we would do something called what we call a GIC, or a general ice control operation, and that's typically when our salt trucks, or what we call our sensors, will go out. They drop salt at various rates, typically with that same brine solution that we use to pre-treat. That is a salt water brine, so it's a diluted salt, if you will. After that, depending on weather, depending on how many inches are expected, depending on what type of temperature is expected, we'll go into what we might consider a partial plow, and that's where we put plow blades on the sensors. So that happens obviously quite often. And then what we had this past weekend is what we would consider a full plow, and that's where we actually bring in all of our packers. So our packers are the garbage recycle trucks, and then we put plow blades on those pieces of equipment. During snow and ice operations, we have something called an A team and a B team. So that's a 12-hour shift morning, 12-hour shift at night. That includes operators as well as management, support staff, office staff, yard staff. There are about 120 pieces of equipment or sensors that come in, and about 159 employees that work for a regular salt truck, and that does include also light-duty pickup trucks that get into, say, narrow streets or need to do very unique, some of the pedestrian installations that you've seen out. A lot of times our pickup trucks do those. When we do a full plowing and bring in the packers, that adds another 60 to 90 pieces of equipment, and that does not include our private pieces of equipment. Those are the end loaders. The end loaders, they do our dead ends, cul-de-sacs, crossovers, and that's about somewhere between, we hope, 36, sometimes up to 50 pieces of equipment. Really depends on who's available and who can get here. This particular operation, I won't get into too many details of this past operation unless you ask me to, but there's still a lot of construction out right now, so a lot of our operators weren't available, private operators, want to clarify that. So then at that point, when you do a full plowing, you're talking about 250 to 300 employees working at a time. As far as priorities go, there was a question about what's an arterial. I admit 10 years ago when I started working snow and ice, I was like, what's an arterial? No one knows what that is, but apparently everyone does except me. It's a main street. So it is the main street that, fire and police travel, bus routes, where your main streets are leading out to your residential streets. So our priority one is opening up those mass transit routes. That includes arterials or main streets to help traffic move from point A to point B as effectively as possible throughout the city. Then we move usually into the residential streets and getting the dead ends, cul-de-sacs, and boulevards opening. Priority 3 is going to be alternate side plowing and cleanup. So you saw that recently when we called a snow emergency, where we asked cars to all park on one side. So then at night we would go through and clear the opposite side, and then vice versa. We usually like to call those in 2 days increments, unless we know the snow is going to melt back. So say April, there's a snowstorm. If we had to call a snow emergency, we would take a look at what our temperature's looking like, and then we might elect not to call that second day because things are melting back. But right now, obviously, we want to set the tone right out of the gate, because if this snow stays around the entire season, we want to go curb to curb the best we can. Priority 5, which happens once we make sure all our travel lanes are cleared, we start clearing our bus stops, parking meters, if those are blocked out, litter cans, that type of thing. One thing I didn't mention that happens during priority 1 is also the bike lanes. So at the same time we're salting or plowing, we are also brining, salting, and or plowing our bike lanes and installations that move bikes to and fro. Priority 6 is snow removal. And so snow removal doesn't happen often, but it is part of things. So if you can imagine on the viaducts, when we plow snow to the edges, that could cause a very dangerous condition that we call ramping. And so at that point, we would then have ribbon blowers that go out and actually blow that snow into a dump truck. We remove, so that's snow removal. Few years back, I want to say 4 years ago, there was a very, very narrow street in, I believe, Alderman Perez's district that was very parked up, very congested, and we actually had to go in for a several block stretch and remove that snow. We try to make sure we do a good enough job moving cars, which can be a challenge, making sure cars are moved, and plowing from the beginning, because snow removal can be very expensive. I believe just a 3 or 4 block snow removal effort cost over $1 million. So we do not try to do that unless we absolutely need to for public safety or for access. Let's see what else. If I didn't mention it, we also have tracklesses. Those are smaller pieces of equipment. There's maybe, I think, a handful that go out every single operation, and they always do the non-accessibles of the City of Milwaukee. So those are areas that City of Milwaukee is responsible for and not accessible on the tax base. We're responsible for those. over the bridges, pedestrian walkways, so our smaller pieces of equipment clear those at the same time. And then usually towards the end of the operation, when we're in what we consider cleanup mode, we have an entire trackless complement of, I believe it's 38, that go out and clear corners. If our plows, now this can sort of vary, if you will, but if our plows plow back snow that cause undue hardship on the resident to clear out their corner, our trackless operators will go do that. Now, we don't send them out to clear corners on every snow and ice operation because corners are the responsibility of the property owner. Okay, so fire hydrants, corners, bus stops, that's the property owner's responsibility. But of course, we recognize that that's not realistic, especially in the last snow we had. We send out those tracklesses to clear open those corners. So that happens. Let's see what else I can get to. Service levels, I think this is important to also mention during a plowing activity. Anytime we are pushing snow, our plows only have the ability to push straight forward or at a small angle right or left. Some snow going back into driveways is inevitable. There are times when a resident may call us and let us know, hey, this all froze, there's a berm that's taller than my thigh. We don't know what's going on, but can you come help us? Absolutely we will. Absolutely we do. We just need to know about it. Oftentimes our operators, as they're pushing that snow, recognize it themselves and call back to the field to the supervisors and managers and let them know, because a different piece of equipment has to come out. There are times when I hear the feedback that a plow dumped snow or put snow into a driveway. That's seldom, I understand the perception of that, but our plows cannot actually lift up and dump. They can only push. But some snow back into driveways is an unfortunate, inevitable part of snow and ice. But we do try to be reasonable, and especially we want residents to let us know what's going on. What else?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead, Alderman Bowman.
First, I want to thank Alderman Brower for bringing this forward. Every year, we usually have had these files to both give a refresher as well as provide feedback and actually air complaints if there are complaints out there. First of all, I want to, speaking for my district, I think the plowing operation went very well. What didn't go very well is the parking issue. And I don't see anybody here from parking. Right now, your major problem is parked cars. Mm-hmm. And I don't have any solution to that, short of very vigorous enforcement, which nobody seems to want to do and hasn't done for 4 years. So there's been a pattern established that people figure it is now free to park on the streets of Milwaukee. Why should I get an annual permit? Why should I worry about emergency declaration? This emergency declaration, there was no response to it whatsoever in my neighborhoods. It was as if just a normal night. I don't know if people tune it out, don't watch TV anymore, don't read the newspaper, don't listen to the radio. They certainly don't have e-notify. But that's not your fault in terms of operations, but that is a DPW issue. And I don't know the answer to it at this point, because I've been complaining about this. Finally, we abolished the odd even rule, and actually that's helped, because you eventually got to the curbs in some areas because it's the daytime when the parkers leave, not the nighttime. That's philosophically, though, the other cities do this differently. I was just reading the website for the city of Montreal, which does remove snow almost universally across the entire city. They get a lot of snow. It's also very expensive. They spend about $100 million on snow removal. We spend maybe $8 or $9 million?
Depending on the season, between
Right.
8 and 13.
Right. But that's a philosophical question. Do we ever have that discussion on what should be the policy and ask our citizens, do you want streets so clean you can eat off them within 24 hours after a snowfall? Or are you happy with the current situation? Because there are other ways to do it. The snow removal is the answer. But it's snow blowers, it's trucks, it's melting. They do all those things in Montreal, tremendous costs. So I'm just curious, have we ever had that discussion either internally with the budget office, with the mayoral administration, and presenting this council with options? The gold-plated option A, you're going to cost you $50 million a year. The bronze, silver-plated, X dollars, bronze-plated, X dollars, or the steel-plated, X dollars. I mean, I would think that choice should be presented, because then we can go to our constituents and say, we can eliminate all snow problems, but it's going to add $50 million to the tax levy.
Right.
Your choice. We'll do it. We'll do whatever you are willing to pay for. I don't think they realize there's alternatives
Right.
necessarily. And so have we ever had this philosophical discussion about what should be the policy? And then the other issue, and this is we've been harping on for 21 years that I've been, at this committee, the issue of addressing pedestrian facilities, especially in high walkable neighborhoods, which is a lot of the east side, a lot of downtown, a lot of the west side, 12th Aldermanic District as well, 6th Aldermanic District as well. That does seem to still get second fiddle.
Right.
The pedestrian is not a priority. Moving cars is the priority. And that's been true for 21 years. It's been a tug of war for those 21 years. So that's my comments. But on the philosophical question, I don't think members, much less the public, realizes that there are different ways of doing it that are way more costly, but you'll have clean streets, curb to curb, and you can eat off them in January, right?
Right. Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Yes, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because we talk about this a lot. And in fact, I like how your analogy, we usually say, do you want the Cadillac version, or do you want the, maybe the Subaru version, or whatever, right? But yeah, we have these conversations a lot. In fact, we explore, is there ways for us to adapt the snow melting? We've investigated about, can we get a snow melter? What would that mean? How much would it cost? What would it cost to operate, to purchase? Long term. So we have these conversations often. We talk to the budget office often. We work together. Right now, I think we're under the impression that the amount of funds that we get and not creating undue burden on the tax base, that we're trying to serve and give the best service that we can with the money we're afforded. We are certainly willing to come before the council with various other options based on different types of operational approaches and service levels for your consideration. If that is something you would like us to do, we can definitely prepare that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to look at more snow removal, especially in the central business district, because that really does interfere with commerce. When you have the piles of snow, people can't get to the meters, they're falling over the piles, all those types. And now we have all these dedicated bike lanes, which on Michigan really kind of were skipped for the most part. I think they're still snow covered, I think. They may have been addressed last night. But now we have all these slalom courses that we've set up on some of these roads, which require smaller equipment to even start the job. And it seems to me we should look at much more snow removal options for heavily concentrated, high-density neighborhoods, downtown especially, even Lower East Side residential, near West Side residential, Walker's Point neighborhoods, and what is the cost? And since we do most of this cost recovery through a fee, we can modulate that fee to generate whatever revenue is required for Plan Gold or Plan Silver.
Right.
And perhaps even modulate it based on areas of the city.
Right.
I'm not sure the legality of having a graduated snow collection fee that is higher downtown and lower on the northwest side or the far southeast side, something like that. I mean, I think there's other methods of looking at this that gets us to a better place at some higher cost. And then to help give people the choice. Especially since the snow and ice fee is now paid by everybody that
Right.
is positioned on the street. Nonprofit, tax exempt, doesn't matter.
Madam Chair,
Alderman Brown?
Richard?
you go first.
Alderman Taylor?
So First, thank you. I do want to say thank you because I think you guys did a great job. You were very responsive. I had residents calling, but then they also called back and said thank you for the job that was done. So I greatly appreciate all the hard work of the men and women that were out there during the snowstorm. But as, again, thank you to Alderman Brower for bringing this out. And then also thank you to Alderman Bauman for the things that he was talking about as well as far as pedestrians. But there was, and so I just want to bring this up too because I think it's really important as we look at snow plowing and how it's impacting the residents. And I had asked about the alleys being plowed, and I think that that's still something that needs to be considered. And I think you said that there was 4,000 miles of alley. Is that correct?
So we actually did a pilot alley plowing study in 2018, and I'm happy to share that report. I'm just trying to look through the report. I don't want to confirm if there were that many lane miles of alleys because I don't have it in writing and I wouldn't want to misspeak. But at the time of the 2018 pilot, they did estimate that initial cost for a snow plowing program in alleys would initially be first year $4.6 million and $3 to $3.2 million each year after that. That's obviously 2018 dollars. We can go back to the drawing board and estimate it for future costs, but I will say there are concerns about plowing alleys, in particular in regard to plowing an alley, again, is just a straight movement, and it doesn't account for the spill off of blocking people's garages and maybe potential damages that might ensue after that. But it is something that if you would like to talk more in detail about some of the considerations for that, I'm happy to do so.
I think it's worth talking about. I think that if you can anticipate what the problems may be, then we can come up with solutions to address those issues. So I think that we definitely need to have that conversation and definitely need to look at that because you can clear the streets, but if a person's parked in their garage, they can't get out if the alley is not plowed. So
Yeah.
you still end up with the same issue. So I think it's something that's worth looking at, and I don't want to have it fall by the wayside and we don't even consider it. So that's one. The other thing is I think Alderman Bauman was right. We do have this conversation, and so I've only been here for 3 years, but each time we've had this conversation. And last year we came up with the idea that maybe cameras would help, and so I definitely don't want that to fall by the wayside either, because I think we had a lengthy discussion about equipping the trucks with cameras. We looked at different types of cameras. You guys also talked about having a pilot study of the cameras done, and we haven't had that conversation yet. So I'd like to make sure that we don't let that fall by the wayside either. I think it may be costly on the front end to make sure that each of those trucks are equipped with cameras, but I think it saves on the back end, and that it helps with the number of workers that you have. It helps with the number of phone calls that are coming through. It helps with each of the alders being able to monitor what's happening in their district so that we could speak to that when we get those phone calls. So I think it's something that that we definitely need to continue to have a discussion about, and we need to continue to put into place so that it helps us all on the back end with communicating with residents on what's actually happening in their district. I think, so I know the camera system was very technical, but it had a lot of parts in it that that would allow for us to have access to where the trucks were, what they were doing, whether the alleys were being plowed, so that we could actually defend the work that that people were doing in DPW with snow plowing, and I think that's important to be able to do that. So I just wanted to make sure that we don't lose sight of those two things, because I think they're going to just make us a better city overall and more appreciated.
Absolutely, thank you. We'll get the alley plowing pilot study up to date with today's dollars, share it with the committee, and look forward to more discussion on that. In regard to cameras, those have been installed. So our management group, sort of step one, management group, myself, let's see what we see, let's make sure everything is working. Along with those cameras, we do have ability for access on a map. Right now that is being piloted and tested. This operation, in fact, was the first time we've tested that. We obviously don't want to roll out something that is, still needs some massaging with tech, right? But this gives me a great opportunity to plug tomorrow's meeting at 1 o'clock for alders and your aides to come and talk about our seasonal operations. Kaylin Jenick, our operations manager, will talk to all of our operations and specifically roll out the look of what that map would look like. Hopefully get some feedback from you all so we know what you like about it, what you don't, so that we can keep massaging and make sure when it rolls out it's a good product.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are these some of the drivers that you have with you here today?
These, yes, they are some drivers. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I for one want to say thank you. I know it's not easy being out there in the cold and in the snow. I'm trying to make sure that our streets are safe, so thank you for your work. Are there any other questions? Alderman Westmoreland.
I'm just curious, how long does a shift last during a snowstorm like that?
Do you want me to answer them?
12 to 16.
And that isn't the end of the shift, right? They get to go back for 10 to 12 hours. They get to go home, hopefully manage their own snow, go to sleep a little, eat, and then they come back for another 12 to 16. And in fact, we have a slight lull right now. That's why this small group has joined us, but they're still out there doing cleanup and getting things.
All right, thank you guys. My questions are not really in relation to snow removal. It's the leaf piles. So I just want to know. So the leaf piles that are created by DPW, can you explain why they're there?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So obviously, seasonal operations are very challenging because we're basically dependent on weather to do sort of weather's thing so that we can respond to it. So leaf season for us usually starts early October. Obviously this year, I don't know what happened, but leaves were very slow to fall. We're still out there working regardless because we know if we are, so there's sort of a couple stages of leaf collection. First is the pushing stage. You'll see the smaller tracklesses with broom kind of rakes on the front, and they are collecting the piles that the residents have put out into the street. They push those into the big, large piles that I'm sure everyone has seen.
That's what I'm referencing.
Okay, and then a different crew, because that crew actually has to come around and collect those large piles, if you will. So we start that early October because we know if we can collect as much as we can early on, once the big sort of let go from the trees happens, at least we don't have, this other ancillary stuff going on. It takes anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks to collect all those large leaf piles citywide. So I do have my sanitation manager here, but I believe, and I know he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we had all of our crews, all of our available crews working pre-snowstorm, trying to collect as much as we possibly could citywide, but it's just not enough to collect every single pile.
Right. How was it determined where those piles go? Like
where they're
on the
pushed to.
block? Yeah.
Can you speak more to that?
Sure. Rick Meyer, Sanitation Services Manager. If you see the training our drivers get on where to consolidate or leave those piles, you wonder that they have any spot, because we're trying to, obviously avoid the driveways and, all the accessibility issues, not getting too close to stop signs and corners where you're impacting visibility. So there's a lot of criteria in terms, but in general, I will say that it's on the side streets. So we're not trying to create, the piles. We know, people, if they live on Main Street anywhere, they're going to rake them out. But when we make our larger piles, we're attempting to push them, around to have the lower speed side streets, lower issues with access, visibility, and that kind of thing. Does that answer your question?
Kind of. So like, is it like, to make collection easier, is it like mid, I know it's situational, no block is the same, but mid block, end of block, on a T, like at the end of that block where that T starts, like, or is it just random? Wherever it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Probably a lot of judgment call that our operators have to use. We give them guidelines, and to Rick's point, there's a lot of places we say you absolutely can't put a leaf pile, but it's very situational. It really depends on lots of things, unfortunately.
So is it documented where exactly these piles are put?
Yeah, so our process, the crews that are consolidating them, when they leave the piles, they have, and we're working towards the digital format and so on that we've talked about, some of that we're using in our garbage recycling collections. But our traditional method is that they are documenting on the paper maps, the leaf maps that they have of where they're working, and so they're just indicating where they're leaving the piles on those, and it's, these maps, they're close in, so they can be pretty accurate as far as where it is on the street. And then those maps are then what we use as our basis to provide the collection crews. And so we're pretty good about identifying, where we left it and where we need to pick up. Occasionally, do we miss a large pile that doesn't, fall through the cracks? Yes, but on usually we're really good. It's pretty straightforward. We left piles here, we send crews there.
Okay. All right. And just so everybody's clear, I mean, I understand we're all short-staffed, right? The same, in most cases, the same people that are picking up the leaves are the same ones that are doing the plowing, correct?
So the same people that do your garbage and recycle are the same people that pick up the leaves and are the same people that do snow and ice, yes.
Okay. I just want to put that out there because
Yes.
some people think it's different.
Yeah, it's
So,
an important detail, I
for sure.
think.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. I would also like to mention, just to follow up, Alderwoman Taylor, it's 4,000 alleys, not 4,000 miles.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do want to give you kudos too for your social media posts. I think a few years ago I think many of us already started sharing the email that you send us. I found the recent social media posts to be just as engaging for the regular constituent.
Yeah, Tiffany Shepard, our communications and marketing specialist, is phenomenal. We're really happy to have her. And lucky, because it helps with communication.
Madam Chair?
Alderman Bowman.
We've also discussed from time to time clearing sidewalks. Again, doing my back at the note research here, Toronto does clear sidewalks above 2 centimeters. I think 2 centimeters is, well, it's not much. So the property owner is required to clear under 2 centimeters, above 2 centimeters to city plows 98% of their sidewalks with mechanical equipment.
Right.
Have we ever discussed that?
We do discuss that. Myself, Gerald, Kevin Muse, we discuss it a lot because we realize that pedestrian access is just as important as other mobility forms. And so a lot of the barrier is the cost and what should we do that's affordable and that we can afford, and how do we make sure that the sidewalks are clear and safe for all modes of transportation, whether you're walking, biking, driving, or otherwise. So I don't think we've landed on a good answer to that yet, but it is discussion we have quite frequently.
Cost.
Not yet, but we can certainly do it. We can certainly go through the exercise. We know it'll be quite expensive. Some of our, we have some concerns with it because we think we would need private contractors to come do it. That can be.
Well, that's what Toronto does.
Yeah. that can be.
Were you on the trip, that Preston Cole's
I
trip?
wasn't.
Our famous trek to Toronto in the middle of winter? When
I wasn't, but I was working for DPW when you and Preston went, and
Well,
so
that
he
just
told
means
me a
the
lot
whole
about
crowd
it.
that went, and
Yeah.
it was very interesting.
Kovac went, right?
Yes,
Yep,
indeed he
yep.
did, and we saw the Minutemen, all their big dump trucks with plows that sat basically ready to roll.
Right.
And all contractors. And they lived on the site of the place where the trucks were parked, in these trailers, literally. And these were folks that would come down from the north of Canada who would do, lumber work and the things in the summer, then they'd come down and live in these trailer camps during the winter and would man these trucks, and out they'd go, and they're big purple, big heavy duty dump. I mean, so but again, they spend, 10 times what we spend?
Right.
So, I mean, there are alternatives, because I hear about the sidewalk issue constantly.
Yes.
And rather than the whack-a-mole process we have now, where you're trying to running out and issuing orders, and people got, 24 hours to comply, or
24. Yeah.
just do it.
Right.
Send them the bill. Or at least give people the choice of that.
Right.
I think you'll see many people say, yeah, okay, if that's an extra $5 million to do sidewalk plowing, fine, we'll add that to the snow and ice fee. If it's another $5 million to do certain alleys, we'll do that. Because it's done other places.
We can cost that out, sure.
Has there ever been conversation with bids about the sidewalk thing and maybe them paying for it?
So I think we've already engaged with some of the more active bids about sidewalk clearing, certainly Historic Third Ward, downtown bids. I think we could maybe do a little more about talking to some of the other bids about how they can help support us and how we can partner. That's not a bad idea at all.
I think it might be wise.
Madam Chair, can I get in the queue for when the committee's done?
Is there any other committee member? Oh, go ahead.
Just one more
Alderman
question.
Sullivan.
So now newly, I have between 100 and Burleigh on Lisbon, paved bike lane. Is the city, that came up yesterday from a constituent, city, are we clearing those bike lanes?
So yes, we clear bike lanes. Now, remind me, the way that bike lane looks, is it raised or protected, or is
It's
it just?
protected.
It is a protected bike lane, yes. Then the city would be clearing that. If it hasn't been cleared, let me
Okay.
know so I can.
All right.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
And you said, what was that again? Because I'm going to check it.
Well, it's only open from, on the westbound side, from 86th Street to 100th on Lisbon.
So part of that might be that it's, even the part that's open might not be completely ready per the contractor, so that might be why it's not on our
Oh,
maps yet.
it's ready.
Okay, well, I'll double
But
check
I
on
mean,
it.
I haven't looked
Okay.
to see if they did it. I was just curious if we
Okay.
are clearing those.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Just for the edification of the listeners, if a street isn't done, like a regular resident, what do they do? Who do they call?
Sure. So it is 286 City, or there is an online request that they can use using the app or going online to request service. There's a couple different service levels there. There's like street mist for a plow, and then I think icy road conditions. I will caveat that with when we are just starting out an operation and we're still in the middle of that operation, we typically do not open up those service requests because we know that there are still streets that we haven't gotten to. You'll hear me say this over and over, and in my emails, patience is key. Please be patient with us. Somewhere between 24 and 48 hours after snow stops falling is when you can expect for us to get to every street. But there is a time after that time period, usually within 24 to 48 hours, when we open up those phone lines to take those concerns and requests.
So it's not put it on social media and tag your alderperson and complain about it?
No, it is
or
not.
on X and
We-
tag your alderperson?
we-
Just call 286 City or do it online, right?
And if it's okay, I would even say we would prefer to know about it. If you call 286 City, if you have the app, if you go online and do that service request, that actually gets to our field quicker than if you call or tag your alder, because you might all not be available, you might be doing other things. The people you email to, the things you email to us, we are usually, hustling and bustling in the middle of a snowstorm. But those service requests in the field, that's directly in the field, they print them, they hand them directly to the drivers. And so it cuts out all the middle noise. I mean, obviously, if there's concerns, people are free to do what they want and what makes them comfortable. But we want to be responsive. We do not want to miss a street. We do not want to do a poor job.
What's the response time usually for if somebody calls to 866 City?
Usually within 24 hours, because depending on what time they call and have the request entered, if it's late in the afternoon, we might not print that until overnight or early morning, but within 24 hours for sure.
If you guys already have this, please send it. But if you don't, you might want to make it just a graphic that says, if we missed the street or if your street needs to be plowed, call 286 City, put the link
Yeah.
or use the app or whatever, so that across social media platforms, we all could be sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to do that.
Thank you. Alderman Spiker?
I'm actually waiting on.
Okay. Alderman Brower?
Yeah, thank you. I'm really appreciating these questions, and I had some more from constituent contacts we've gotten too. Maybe I should make clear. I think this was made clear to me, some of the vernacular that we're using, because obviously, like plowing snow is a form of removing it from a space. So when we use the term in DPW world, when we use the term removal, we're talking about like getting it off the ground, either melting it or into a dump truck to like literally take it somewhere else.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's where. So when we say snow removal, we're talking about it getting it off of the street, off the ground, in a specific area. When we talk about plowing, we're talking about using a blade to push it
Yes.
into different things. Okay, because you talked about. Okay, I just want to make sure for everybody listening, and we're planning on sending this link out to our constituents. So I just want to make sure that's clear. So the question, we talk about costs, when we talk about logistics, we engage almost exclusively, from what you were saying, Danielle, in plowing, and our city crews engage in plowing, and then removal. Maybe there's some examples of other cities like Montreal that do full-blown removals of all the snow. We only do removals on an as-needed basis.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, because that does lead to one of the questions I did get about alleys, and we had already touched on it a little bit. You had brought the concern that if we're plowing an alley, because a constituent emailed our office and said, why can't the city plow only the alleys that have garbage collection? Like, just as we're collecting the garbage, have a plow on the front of that thing. And but this is a question we got, so I just want to answer. I see you guys laughing, I'll acknowledge that. But this is a legitimate question we got from one of my constituents. I asked my constituents to deliver me questions, and so that would be a question I can see, from what you were saying earlier, like if we have a garbage crew and I was out for 6 hours with our garbage collection, I know the drill. But if we're out there, I don't see the. Could you just describe that, because that was a question we got.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's a good question. It really is. But at the end of the day, I think one of the things we need to remember that part of the process of plowing snow requires, like torque in a vehicle, right?
Yes. Okay.
And so garbage collection means that you have to stop, empty the garbage
like every
in.
3 houses.
Yeah,
to collect
every
the
couple
bins.
houses. And so the garbage packer itself needs momentum to push that snow.
Okay.
And if they stop, in fact, we see this a lot when we use our garbage packers when they're plowing. If they are plowing heavy snow, which I assume is when we would want alley plowing, right? They'll get stuck. They will get stuck in the snow
because also they're loaded down with everything that's been collected.
Right, every time, because it would be like drive a house, collect, and then drive one house, and now there's very little space for that snow to go, right? Some of it is staying in the front of the plow blade, some of it is falling off the edges, but the majority of that weight is right in front of that plow blade, and so it would be 2 houses before now they were stuck. So if there were potential for plowing, say for example a street, you'll notice they don't really slow down or stop. They'll come to a street, analyze it, can I get through, and they have to go, because if they slow down or stop, they're now stuck there.
No, and that's maybe to a broader question about whether we want to offer this to our constituents or not, as far as plowing alleys or snow removal or plowing on alleys. I mean, seems like in the alleys we would have no choice but to engage in snow removal, because then we're gonna, I had a constituent, they said, when it would plow, the snow removal in alleys would plow in, you were talking about that, plow in the garage doors, or if we're doing that with driveways. I did get another email from a constituent who's concerned about driveways. Any amount in front of a driveway is a concern for elderly individuals who have trouble shoveling and removing that snow themselves. So any of that kind of stuff would have to be a snow removal, really, in the end. And then we're talking about, just a larger assessment, a property tax assessment or a fee assessment, which I'm not opposed to. And I like what Alderman Baumann is saying, is that we should just explore offering this to our constituents. What do you guys want? Perhaps there could be some sort of option, kind of like our community-led traffic calming. I was daydreaming about this the other day, the word like community-led traffic calming, where neighborhoods or groups like petition, and then it comes before us here, we authorize it, and it becomes an additional fee into a specific geography, where a neighborhood has said, yeah, we want a little bit more premium kind of services from the city, where now our alley is getting snow removal, there's plowing on the sidewalk or something. I'll just throw that out there. I know that would be an enormous cost, but there are some neighborhoods that would be willing to pay that, I think, or just to there's a time factor in money as well. So I don't have to shovel my sidewalk or my alley. Well, okay, I saved myself some time, and now I'm paying for it on a fee on my assessment.
Yeah, so what's interesting about that sort of concept is that, certainly I grew up in Milwaukee. I know from the time I was a child all the way until I was a 30, 35-year-old adult, when I didn't live on an alley anymore. And I know neighbors still do it to this day. They do sort of exactly that. They get together, pool, $20, $50. I don't know what the cost is anymore, but they get together, pool their money. They hire usually a contractor with a pickup truck, which is much more nimble in an alley, whereas a garbage packer, it's just like plow it straight through. A small pickup truck can have a little more maneuverability in that tight space and be a little more careful with what they're doing. So usually neighbors, get together, pay a contractor and for the season, and the contractor comes and does their alley. I know there's, I hear a lot of residents talk about that, and usually when they get most frustrated is when at some point the neighbors, whoever was in charge of collecting that money no longer does, or when the neighbors just no longer simply contribute, or they lost their contractor to do that. I know on our website we do have a list of contractors just to try to direct people in a direction if they want to get that pool of money together and maybe get a contractor to do that for them.
And if there is this came to my mind with that, if there is a contractor out there that wants to be on the website listed, there easily is they could drop an email to DPW
Absolutely.
and have it be listed.
Absolutely.
There's not a particular vetting process. You're just like, hey, here's snow removal or plowing contractors that are out there if you would like to contact somebody.
We don't incur any type of liability. We're just saying, here's a list of contractors,
Perfect.
call who you want.
And the nice, the problem, with the alley clearings is the free rider problem. Joe Smith at 2565 didn't pay his fee this year, but the alley still got cleared. Of course, now we're the government, we can levy a tax, so the free rider problem isn't as much of an issue with there. I just want to go through a couple terms that you were using. There, you talked about with the viaducts and the issue of plowing those and ramping. What is that? I'm not familiar with that term.
Sure, absolutely. So on the viaducts, obviously they're very long stretches of bridge. Our plows go through and plow the snow, if you can imagine, to the edges, and then a sidewalk crew comes and clears the sidewalks so that people have accessibility on the sidewalks. And usually there's a little bit of back and forth, but eventually between the street and the sidewalk over the bridge ends up being a berm. In winter,
that happens almost on any street, though.
Any
too.
street. It's particularly impactful, I think, in bridges. One, we want to make sure we're keeping those bridges as wide open as possible. But two, when that snow freezes in place, if there were an accident and a car were to what we call ramp up that frozen ice, they'll go over. So you'll notice, on freeways, the Home Bridge, the state, the county, they are very particular in how they clear the snow because anything over an overpass that has that sort of berm can cause what we call ramping, and we
You're
obviously
saying the
want
vehicle could potentially
ramp up
leave the
over,
overpass.
yes.
Okay.
And so that is, again, a removal of snow, and usually it's frozen by the time we remove it.
No, that's I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, when you said we said one of the when you were going through the priority list, you were talking about clearing bus stops. Is that plowing, or are we doing a removal at some point in your priority? I don't remember which priority tier it was that you identified.
Sure,
but-
absolutely. So when we're done, when we're in our cleanup phase, usually as soon as we can release our end loaders, once our end loaders are done clearing our cul-de-sacs, dead ends, and crossovers. A crossover is like in between boulevards when you streets meet. When they're done with
okay.
that, they are immediately released the very next evening, if you will, and they are sent out to clear bus stops. Now, what they do is they clear the pad in front, and then potentially where sort of that back way would be. Now, corner usually.
And they'll clear it and remove it, you mean?
Yeah.
They'll be
Usually,
removed, okay.
now, usually corners are or bus stops are on a corner. So again, like snowfall is the responsibility of the property owner, but we recognize that it can be very challenging to clear that much snow off of a corner. So we do deploy those resources whenever we plow.
Okay, and for corners with bus stops, and you alluded to this earlier, but just for clarity, under what conditions are is a corner that is entirely privately held? I mean, it's just there's houses there on all corners. At what point are those corners? Do we ever engage in a removal to have that fully accessible?
Sure. So we talk about it internally, and the language we use is anytime it causes an undue hardship on the homeowners.
Okay.
Right. So if it's an inch or two of light fluffy snow, we consider that to be manageable by just a reasonable average resident. So we would not clear corners in that instance. This obviously plowing, we know we're plowing back boulders in some case, right?
Yep.
So that is absolutely an undue hardship. We absolutely clear all corners then.
Okay. Then that would be on us then
Yeah.
for us to clear out those.
In fact, I
corners as
believe
well.
they're working on that operation right now, are they not? Yes. Yeah.
And speaking of the workers here, and then for those that are present, thank you all so much for your commitment to this city. Thanks to everybody. I mean, I just want to ask this question because I know
Sure.
we've gotten this in some of the email correspondence as well. Like this is for the people either whether you're on an A team or a B team or whatever, this is kind of a mandatory overtime situation
Yes.
that's occurring. That people are called in, beginning with pre-treatment.
Yes.
At what point then and thank you for every worker who's listening to this and whoever does that, like thank you all so much for coming in and doing that hard work. At what point, and just going back to the beginning with some of the priorities here, at what point do we make a determination who or whom makes a determination about pre-treatment? I mean, obviously, you never can predict the future,
Right.
Like, so the meteorologists, they say there's a storm coming in. I mean, who sits there and says, okay, well that's real, or I believe Mark Baden, what he says is this this is going to happen. This storm is going to happen, so we better get out there and pre-treat. So at what point are we? And I really do I'm actually curious. Besides the joking aside, I am curious about what point we're making a decision to pre-treat, and then which roads are we deciding to pre-treat, and what are the priorities there?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And I'm going to start it with, we do actually have paid weather services that send us official weather reports.
Okay.
And so we have rotating managers who keep an eye on that. They cumulate it for a team. There's never one person making these decisions. There's a team of people because more heads are better than one, right?
So Krusky's not out there reading the tea leaves or anything.
No one's reading the tea leaves.
Okay.
Well, maybe they are, but
Okay, well, maybe that's
sometimes
part of
that's
it.
more accurate. Probably more accurate sometimes. But weather is, as much as it's a science, it is also an art. We're learning. I, talked to one of the meteorologists from National Weather Service a couple years ago who said, the majority of the science that we're using to make the prediction, right, is no longer always holding true. So we see a weather front happening, and we use science to say, so this is what's going to happen, and that is not always what happens. In fact, there's times when I'm in our weather room looking at a radar showing a system of snowing, and I look out the window and I'm like, but there's not one flake hitting the ground. I don't understand. It's like this disconnect. It's dissipating and drying out before it actually hits the ground. So it is very challenging to predict when to do something, what to do, and you don't always get it 100% right, but we always try to err on the side of being more proactive than less. As far as pre-treatment goes, there are times when we will not pre-treat, and pre-treatment is typically the brine, but can sometimes be a pre-treatment of salt, although we try to avoid that.
And what constitutes the brine?
Yeah, so the brine is the salt water solution, and that is the white lines that end up on the street. We will not do pre-treatment if it's raining or going to rain, because it just washes that salt away, and it's useless, and it's just washing down. If it is not going to rain, we'll go ahead and brine. We always start with mains. We sometimes try to get into the districts. If there is a large snowstorm, we will pre-treat with salt in the districts, meaning residential streets, because we know we're going to be on the mains so long that getting back to the districts, we want to put something down so
this
that
is why I've
it
seen
bides
pre-treatments
time.
on Hackett or other residential
Yes.
streets. Okay.
It's biding us time. And we've been trying to do a really good job being responsive to the council's needs of us getting into the residential streets earlier, so that it doesn't pile up and render people unable to even move from point A to point B or even get to the mains. But one thing that's important to know about the mains is that although we may not make sure it's perfect curb to curb before we go to the residential, we do have to make sure it's at least safe. If people are slipping and sliding on those mains, we internally talk about losing it. We say we're going to lose the mains. That means that we have not treated with enough salt or have not plowed early enough that you're driving a main and it feels like you're driving on a residential where there's, like thick accumulation. Like that is a very, very serious situation for us, because we cannot lose those mains. So we stay
Because
on.
the buses depend on them. Ambulance. Fire service. Okay. Yeah.
It's how we get from point A to point B. We understand that on the residentials, it is very impactful for us to get there sooner. So we've been doing a good job about, we maybe leave the parking lanes on a main street. We'll come back to those a little later. That affords us time to get into those residentials.
No, and so this is a really good point, because we get contacts about, like, well, why did my street get plowed? Well, and I'll just say that, and this is I guess a resource distribution question, given that we don't have unlimited resource to do everything that we want all the time at any moment. We do have to make priority decisions, and then so therefore we have to decide which streets, these arterials, are going to serve the most constituents and most residents of the city at any one point. And so therefore a street like, and we have, where there's only houses, or it's 6 single-family homes on a block, therefore has to be a lower priority. And given that we don't have unlimited resource, we can't get to all the priorities immediately, and so that's what's literally occurring. So you might have so is this a decision maybe a supervisor might make at the moment on the ground of, okay, well, we've already done we did one clearing of, say, like North Humboldt, and we've done all the main areas over in District 3, or I know you guys number your districts and have different layouts that aren't contiguous to aldermanic districts, but we've done parts of the east side or River West of the main streets. We're moving on to residential. Might a supervisor then make a call based on accumulation on the ground and say, now we got to go back to the mains and arterials and end plowing in the residentials? Or can you describe like some of the factors that go into those decision-making process?
You actually described it perfectly. It sounds like you want a DPW job.
Okay. I know. Well, actually, I was joking with the. I was joking with the crew that if this political thing fails for me, I'm going to be applying for a job in
you're
sanitation.
Gonna come on
okay.
over. We're going to get you your CDL yell and you can come on
there we
over.
go.
No, you explained it perfectly, and that is exactly what happened. So we have, so if I can talk about our decision-making processes.
Yeah.
We have a snow duty administrator. That person
Yes.
is solely responsible for monitoring the weather, monitoring changing conditions, and sort of the glue that hubs together the other managers. Because then we have a snow duty manager, and we have a fleet manager, and then you have myself. So that is sort of the core management group as far as taking a look at weather. Now, decision-making, yes, this group makes decisions, but then there are probably, 15 managers and supervisors under them that are spread out in the different areas and districts.
Based out of the
Yes,
yards?
that are
Out of the
based in
sanitation
the
yards?
yard, and they are the ones that are giving us, eyes on the street information, and telling us exactly what's happening, boots on the ground. Now, we do have an entire weather room. You're welcome to come see it. We have tons of cameras. We have access to the police pole cameras. We have access to weather cameras. We have our own cameras, and so we can keep an eye on those cameras, but that doesn't always give us the information of, a supervisor who was driving down the street and sort of did a little test of like hitting the brake and seeing how far do they slide, what happens, right? That gives us real-time information. In addition to that, I depend heavily on these drivers because when they're out salting, plowing, working, they feed information up to the managers who then feed information up to us. Another thing we did that I think most of the council has talked about is we took a 3-year process rerouting the entire city. So in the past, so you see our service levels, our mains and residentials. In the past, a driver would get a route map, there's 90 routes, that had main streets, and then residentials, but they weren't geographically located completely next to each other. There might have been a little overlap, but there could be times when a main street could be 60th Street from, Silver Spring all the way down to, let's see,
And you have all
State
those
Street.
listed somewhere, right? What the arterials
Yes,
are and all
we
that stuff.
do.
It's not just a decision based on a supervisor makes in a moment. It is listed in a book. Okay.
Yeah, no, and there's criteria to be a main street, right? It's travel speeds, what's the posted speed limit, how many cars does it carry per hour, is there bus stops on it? There's a set
There's
of
a
criteria.
professional,
Absolutely.
scientific based assessment of what an
absolutely.
arterial street is. It's not
Yes.
just a decision. And I'm not trying to be facetious or anything with these questions. I mean, we get these
No,
questions
these
in
are
our
good
office of
questions.
like, well, how'd the city make this decision? That decision was silly. I don't agree with it, and I want to be able to be armed with the facts to be able to explain to constituents why, or at least the thought
Absolutely.
process.
No, absolutely, yeah. There definitely is a list of criteria. It wasn't made up by us. We inherited it. They use it nationwide, right? And a lot of times it has to do, is it a state highway? Is it a county highway? Is it, how many cars does it hold per hour, per day, traveling it? How many stop and go lights are on it? Is there hospitals, schools, police stations, fire stations on it? So there's a plethora of considerations that go into a main street. I forget where I left off.
Oh. Yeah, we were just talking about arterials and
Yeah.
the hierarchy of the roads
Yep.
and all that stuff
So,
and where that was
so
going.
that's how it's determined. Oh, rerouting.
Yeah.
So mains and residentials were not geographically located over each other. The last 3 years, we have spent a considerable amount of time locating and rerouting everything so that when a driver gets a route book, they have main streets that lay over their residential streets. And that is specifically done for a reason. There's pros and cons to it, though, because the main streets now are smaller stretches. We used to really like long stretches of main streets, right? Because then a driver's really effective and efficient.
Just all the way down
You just
Capitol or
go all
something.
the way
Yeah.
up and you come all the way down. But what that didn't help do was keep an eye on residentials. So in order for us to go and pivot back and forth without having to go through 3 or 4 layers of communication, which can take time, right? This allows the driver to make really good decisions for themselves. That's their route. They care a lot about it. They can do their mains and then say, I'm going to go ahead and head into my residentials. The manager said that was okay to go, go when I'm done. But then as they're going through those residentials, they're passing their mains that they're responsible for. And if they see them starting to snow over, right, or track over, or there's problems, they can make their real-time decision to go, oh, I better get right back to my main because this is looking dangerous. And then when the main is feeling better again, they can resume back to residentials.
And so then at what point, like during this, so we've pre-treated a road, we made a call to make a pre-treatment or not. The snow is beginning to accumulate. It's visible out there. At what point do we say, all right, we're getting the trucks out and starting to plow? I mean, is there a certain accumulation amount? We're probably doing a pre-treatment or salting, but at what point do we get plows out? And can you describe kind of how that decision-making
absolutely.
process goes?
So pre-treatment, we do a lot of pre-treating, and if we're lucky, pre-treatment will actually handle like a dusting of snow. And we actually don't have to send anybody out because we know it's just going to be a very trace dusting or maybe a little bit of freeze back. We'll send out just a few trucks. When we know that there is going to be snow beyond what a pre-treatment would handle, we do try to get our staff in place and in the building and in their trucks before the snow even starts to accumulate, because we know we're going to have to drop salt down at some point. We might as well bring them in and get them ready. So we do that. Every sensor truck, which is the salt truck, has an underbelly plow blade also. So that is meant so that we can salt and underbelly plow small amounts under, like 2-3 inches. And that's dependent on how fast it falls, right? So 2 to 3 inches over 2 days is very different than 2 inches in an hour, right? So that all has to be considered when we're deciding when to mount the front blade. And so if something's coming fast, heavy, strong, and we know that the underbelly blade and salt isn't going to be able to move or handle and create safe conditions, we know that we then need to mount those front plow blades. So it's hard to give it's always at this point, because it really depends. If it's light and fluffy and blowing around, a front plow blade isn't going to do much for that. If it's wet and heavy, we might start getting those front plow blades mounted. Sometimes we mount plow blades and we never needed them because it can take, you have to imagine I've got 90 routes, 120 people coming in. It can take an hour for everyone to come back to the garages, get plow blades mounted, and get back on the street.
Onto a salt truck then.
Yeah.
And at what point do we mount them onto the garbage trucks? Because I've seen that.
Yep, that happened this last operation. So sometimes we know in advance of the snow or right when it starts to fall, we're going to need those packers. We'll get them in early. We'll get those plow blades mounted. Luckily, with this last snowfall, that happened to be the case. We were like, it's going to be a lot of snow. We better get those packers in and get the blades mounted right away. So that was an ideal condition. Sometimes the weather says, 3 to 4 inches of light, fluffy snow, and all of a sudden 5 to 6 of wet, heavy snow falls, and we feel we're a little behind the call, if you will, because now we're watching it in real time happening, and there comes a point when that management group says, this looks like it's coming in differently than we anticipated. We better start considering when we bring the packers in. That obviously is
The packers being, can you define that?
packers is the garbage packers with the plow blade, the garbage trucks.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
That obviously is something that we take very seriously when we make that call, because if we call them in, garbage and recycling is knocked off.
Yeah.
That it absolutely is happening. And so we're always thinking about, all right, is the public, how are they going to feel about this? But it is also risky, because when you're in a sweet spot of, well, maybe we didn't need them, but maybe we did. Right now, it seems like, residents, council, would much appreciate us doing a better job plowing and following up with garbage and recycling later, which obviously we do. Our staff are working 10-hour days the rest of this week, including Saturday. But we do try to be mindful, because if those, again, to Alderman Westmoreland's point, those are all the same staff for the most part. And so that is tiring and exhausting work, and then slips, trips, and falls and injuries go up. Exhaustion sets in. People don't make as good of decisions. So it is a balancing act constantly. It is a very much a balancing act.
And then when the snow is, so it's continuing to accumulate here, then at what point is a snow emergency? And could you define snow emergency? And at what point is that declared, and who makes those calls?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Rick. So that call is made in consultation with the Commissioner of Public Works and the mayor. We call a snow emergency, or a parking snow emergency. I like to be clear, because sometimes people confuse snow emergency in the weather world with snow emergency in the municipal world. And so for us, a snow emergency is about parking.
Okay.
And we call that when we know that parking is going to be impacted, and that we will need to, A, make sure the streets are wide enough, B, make sure there's enough available parking, and C, quite honestly, set the tone for the season. Because if, for example, I might not be willing to suggest a parking emergency in April, because it's going to turn to slush and melt in a day, right? Depending on what that weather's going to be predicted to be. Right now, it is vital that we make sure as much snow is pushed to the corners, and that we alternate side or snow emergency park, so that the first night our trucks can go through and get to the one side, and the second night our trucks can come through and get to the other side. Because if this snow doesn't melt back, obviously you can imagine the more and more snow that falls throughout the season, it'll start to impede and make parking worse, impede those driving lanes. So it's really important that we call those snow emergencies, and it's really important for us to call them in 2 days. And if you don't mind me expanding more.
I did get questions about that, so please do.
Yeah, I know, some municipalities can call the snow emergency that first night. Like, it's snowing and they call it that first night. Snow emergency tonight, everyone get off the street. That's realistic.
We don't have them get off the street, though. We just do alternate side parking in Milwaukee.
Correct.
Okay,
But that is because we are a unique municipality. If you think of a municipality like Wauwatosa, they don't allow street parking at night. So it makes
During their snow emergency.
during ever.
Period.
During ever. So
Is everyone's
that's
privileged with a driveway, I guess, or something there?
But I think this is an
Okay.
important point, because our staff have to contend with parked cars all the time. Even when we do call a snow emergency, to Alderman Bauman's point, and I drove around the entire city during this operation, and on the east side and in your district, yes, it's still just double-sided parked cars, and it's very challenging for those plows. Alderman Bauer, you were in one. That plow blade makes you very wide. It's difficult to get down those streets. It renders parking sort of, difficult, right? But again, these other municipalities, they don't typically, so they're already in the habit. To Alderman Bauman's point, once people get into a habit, it is extremely challenging to change their behavior. And just at a very high level, looking in, and this isn't an excuse, it's just sort of a fact, like during COVID, we loosened parking, and we did not do a good job getting everybody back into the habit. And so we are now with a great new parking manager, I think, starting to develop different techniques to push the envelope and try to get better compliance.
Well, I mean, people lost a lot of manners during the pandemic, and it wasn't just related to parking. So, the areas of the city, I have received a few concerns from my constituents regarding saying, okay, is the some people say the east side isn't plowed as well as other parts of the city, and some people say the east side is plowed better than other parts of the city, to the detriment of areas like 5206 or the north side, and there might be a discrepancy there between. Can you elaborate on that, and what you guys are doing to ensure equality in snow plowing across the city, or how that's divided?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When we deploy our sensors salt trucks and garbage packer plows. They are deployed by route. There are 90 routes citywide. The staff that pick those routes, they pick those routes, usually because they want to be in those areas. They do an extremely good job. I believe at budget hearings I presented that DPW in particular has, I believe, a 67 to 70% residency rates. In some areas, we have almost 80% of a residency rate. So our operators in particular, a lot of times they like to plow where they live. So they enjoy doing a good job. When we deploy those resources, again, they're all deployed at the same time. But one thing I will say is that in a route, there's always a beginning and an end. And unfortunately, sometimes at the end, cold has set in, things get frozen in place, it might be more difficult to manage. We do every other year alternate what side of the route drivers start at, so that one neighborhood or one block area isn't always getting serviced first.
Every other year or so?
Every other year.
Oh, every other year.
Every other year. So one year they'll start on one side of the map, the next year they start on the other side of the
So
map.
no neighborhood within the city of Milwaukee receives a priority plowing whatsoever over, because I did get some
No.
questions about that. There's no priority plowing
No.
for different areas because we have the workers distributed via the yards, and then they're going into routes
Yes.
within each of those yards and the regions that
Correct.
are assigned to that. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, that's really cool. We explored it all? Text alerts. I mean, I would love text alerts in my office too. But we explored text alerts for the snow emergencies.
Absolutely, and we do that. Citizens can, actually in my snow and ice email, you'll see at the bottom where my signature is, there is a link to sign up for text alerts using e-Notify. Parking also has its own notification system to be notified of parking. Regardless of where people are signed up, we send those text alerts to both.
I guess what I was wondering about is, how come we can't tap into the emergency alert broadcast system? Like we just got an Amber Alert this morning. I mean, is there some way that we could tap into or I'm even thinking we just approved a lease for one of these cell towers. We should put a little rider on that lease that says that we get to send out, I mean, like a non-consensual, not an opt-in, but like you're getting a phone or getting a text message because you're in this geography that we have determined needs to receive a message regardless of whether you opt in or not. Have we explored anything like that?
I haven't explored it, but I certainly am willing to, although I'm going to suspect that carriers will say, carriers will say that, that isn't the level of emergency that an Amber Alert would be.
Well, I mean, of course.
Right.
I mean, I'll acknowledge that. Of
That
course
would
it's
be
not.
my thought. We can ask some questions and see, but I would just say that, I want to encourage people to sign up for those text alerts because they really do work if you're
that's-
signed up.
And where on the DPW website could somebody who's listening in here get that emergency alert?
So I am pretty sure there's an e-Notify on every single page at DPW, but it's on the is it on the right-hand side, Kaylin? Yeah, please. So Kaylin helps me manage our communication on our website and our text alerts, and she can give you a little more on that.
Yeah.
Sure. So Kaylin Jenick, Operations Services Manager with Department of Public Works. So e-Notify is linked on all of our websites, as well as if you go to milwaukee.gov/snow, there are links there, as well as milwaukee.gov/parking. It's highlighted on that main page, as well as part of the menu. We try to have it in multiple places. And when we have large snow events, there's a menu, or there's something on the top of most DPW pages that are visited that will also have that link available to sign up for that quick link that parking has.
Thank you. No, that's really helpful. I'll just interject one piece of political opinion that this is another reason why the carriers need to be under public ownership, so we can make decisions about what is priority for them or not, rather than shareholders. But I guess tying into something, going into another phase of questions that I have here, the leaf collection and all that stuff. I guess we touched on it a little bit. I guess broadly, what I'm coming to understand, and I would appreciate any clarification or correction here, is that city workers are working diligently to remove leaves. It sounds like there's in phases. The resident rakes it to the curb. It gets raked into a pile, and then later potentially some of the same people or a different crew will come by and collect those piles. So what was the reason that there were leaf piles when the snow hit? I think I know the answer, that just it was a capacity issue, but if you could just describe for me, what was the reason, like on the east side, that we still had leaf piles out, or some leaves hadn't even been raked into larger collection piles before the snow hit?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So,
It hadn't even dropped as of 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's true. I know, right? And it's been that, but if you don't
sure,
mind.
that's absolutely it. I mean, at the end of the day, this snowstorm is a little bit unprecedented. It bumped right into our regular leaf season. We are typically not seeing this level of snow during late November, early December. If we do see snow, it's a dusting, right? There has been concerns, I believe, last year regarding leaf collection. I think we are always looking at and wanting to explore if there are better ways we can operate, but we can operate the best possible way with the most amount of people, but we still can't control when leaves come out of the trees or when they're raked into the street.
That's also an option question, if I may, Madam Chair. Not all cities do this rake-out business.
Correct, they don't.
Chicago bags leaves.
Some do
well,
bag
but you're
leaves,
saying-
some don't collect at all. Some do bagged, some don't collect at all. They tell you to mulch.
Yeah,
Okay.
Chicago bags leaves, and you put them at your normal garbage pickup location, and there are special trucks that come through to collect the
But
bag
if our
leaves.
residents are putting them in plastic bags, I mean, that's going to be a nightmare for
They're
composting
paper
them
bags.
at a
They're
later
special,
site.
there's paper bags
Okay, paper.
that are specifically recyclable and designed for this purpose.
Right.
And that avoids this clash between leaf collecting and snow collecting when you use the same equipment.
You said there's municipalities that just require mulching of the leaves, like so we don't, because
Right.
we don't collect yard waste anymore, and I've gotten some complaints about that, and that's totally fine, by the way. I know all this stuff is related to cost, but so that would be something that other municipalities do. They just say deal with it on your own.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if are there any ones around here that do that, or you're aware of?
I'm not sure on the where they don't have any offering, because there's some, like you mentioned, some communities have seasonal yard waste programs that they don't necessarily do anything extra for leaves, but they incorporate, if it's a bagged program or if it's they incorporate, residents will use that program, use your seasonal yard waste program for leaves. Other, maybe some more rural area, areas that would say, hey, you've got land property.
Well, yeah. In a township or something. Yeah.
But around, typically though, there's in our area, there's some kind of offering. Like I said, sometimes it doesn't look much different because it may be that they are incorporating into a seasonal yard waste program that they'll run until through the leaf season. But there are a lot of communities that are in the exact same situation as us, whether they may have different equipment or methods, but there are a lot of like bulk leaf collection programs where it's in the street or it's on the terrace, and they simply are facing kind of this challenge that we have now with the early snowfall.
Is there a way, thank you so much, I do appreciate that, and just going back to some alerts and notifications, thank you colleagues for bearing with me on this. I've been getting a lot of questions about this. The East Side is a very active and communicative district, and I appreciate that with my constituents. This has been one of the top things recently, and especially over the last week. So with the GPS locators that I was shown on Saturday, would we be interested in making, I'm not sure I would support this, but I don't know if there's been talks about making that just public, where every plow truck is at any point in time. Here's a link, just go check it out and see, so you can see where they are. Have we talked about that at all?
We
Or
have.
What would be the implications of that?
We've been having that discussion for the better part of probably 3 years.
Okay.
We've been now that we have the Samsara technology, which is the camera. That same technology offers the location service or the GPS service. One thing I do want to be clear on: we would not ever give live location information of our plow drivers.
Okay, yeah, that
It would
makes so
not,
much
that
sense
would
to
not,
me,
we
yeah.
would put a leg. We would, you know, it wouldn't be unreasonable, but we would put a leg. We just, for safety reasons, wouldn't want to do that.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But that said, we this year have built a map, exactly what we've been talking about, that gives an understanding of where the plow trucks have been, or the salt trucks. Packer plows are not incorporated into that map quite yet, because we only do plowing with Packer plows 3 to 4 times a year on average. Hopefully that does not grow. But the sensor trucks all have that. We've built a map. This last operation was the first time management and leadership had a chance to look at it, see it in action, and sort of determine, you know, what needs to be improved about it, what sort of, you know, look might a resident or an elected want to get from that. And again, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, all electeds and your aides are welcome to come to our meeting we've scheduled, and we'll be rolling out and showing you that map. And we really would love to get your feedback on, like, do you find this useful? What would be better? How can we improve it? We obviously want to have a well-oiled machine, if you will, before we roll it out to your offices and eventually the public.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Another line of questioning I have here, I did get a communication from somebody who lives next to a city property. I think it's a city-owned vacant lot.
Sure.
We have, I believe, almost more than 3,500 of those, or
Yes.
3,400 in the city of Milwaukee. And so when the city, we use a contractor, I'm assuming, for
Yes.
the shoveling of those sidewalks.
Yes.
And I've just received a complaint that, you know, some of those contractors aren't doing that great of a job. There's still snow and ice. And I guess so broadly, when it comes to the sidewalks, and you can speak to maybe city property as well, when it comes to sidewalks, what are constituents supposed to do when your neighbor or the city, when it owns a vacant lot, doesn't do a good enough job shoveling that sidewalk? I mean, I walked back from the premiere of Sung Sung Blue last night. I walked back from Oriental Home, and there's a vacant lot that some developer out of Madison owns, and I was ready to call on them as well. But what are people supposed to do in those
Absolutely. No,
situations?
that's a multi-layered question, so I'll try to hit on everything.
Thank
If I
you.
don't, please just let me know.
course.
So first thing, the requirement is to shovel the entire width of the sidewalk, not just a small path, entire width of the sidewalk within 24 hours of snow stopping. And so that's always kind of the time measurement. We do, as you said, have contractors that are hired to go handle city-owned vacant lots. They are to meet the same time frame requirements. There are times when, depending on the snowfall, will go out to 48 hours. It just sort of depends on timing of snowfall stopping and how much. If there's, 8 to 12 or more inches, we sometimes will give them a little bit longer, but we do that. We offer that same consideration for residents as
I
well.
was going to say, as long as there's parity in that kind of
Yep,
situation.
absolutely.
Because forestry is the one enforcing the
Correct.
sidewalk plowing, okay, or
yes,
shoveling. Thank you.
yeah. So they enforce. They are the team that enforces just regular private property. Complaints of citizens or residents not shoveling. They also do a proactive enforcement now. In the past we hadn't. We're a little more proactive now. But they also manage and monitor the contractors that do the city-owned vacant lots. They are required to shovel and put salt down. If for some reason there's a city-owned vacant lot that a contractor doesn't have good quality or isn't adhering to the contracting process, we do have staff that follow behind those contractors and verify their quality and their work. But if a resident, again, 286 City, or uses the app, lets us know that there's a concern, we'll absolutely follow up with those contractors and hold them to the contract standards.
Have we discussed or considered at all bringing that work in-house?
I don't know that we've discussed it recently, but there would be a cost associated to
course.
it. And quite frankly, it hasn't been something I've seriously considered, because the majority of the staff that work for me in DPW, I have over 800 employees, another 800 in infrastructure. We require the majority of them to have CDLs, and it's specific because we want them in salt trucks or plow trucks,
Got it.
operating that equipment and not necessarily doing, shoveling when we can hire. And we also think that that's supporting small business, right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of good small businesses, Riverworks, and that that does that work for us, and we want to kind of help them stay going as well.
And just to add to that, myself and I think Alderman Stamper years ago worked with DPW and DNS to make the opportunities even more available for small businesses. And I remember at our last advocacy day, we had one of those small businesses owners, I think Mr. Joe Tucker, who started in the program to just take care of a few lots, but after doing that for a couple of years was able to compete for a much larger contract with the city. So he said because of our programs, he was able to take what previously had been like a $20,000 a year business for him into $1 million business.
That's
a year,
great.
for him. So I do think we've done some good, and he hires from the community and all of that kind of thing. I do think we've done some good with finding ways to make small businesses be able to benefit from those contracts. But I would agree with Alderman Brower in that keeping an eye on ensuring that the quality of the work is what it needs to be and holding people accountable is very important as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Do we, when someone, a privately held parcel doesn't shovel and forestry issues an order, what's the timeline and then the precipitation of events that, no pun intended, to get it to be clear?
I'm going to have Kaylin get into those details. She is my expert in that.
Yeah, so a property being in violation, it's going to be an immediate $50 fee. We have already
Okay,
given the
great.
correction time of 24 hours for the property owner to correct it. So at that
So
point,
the correction is just assumed, like, because that's in our ordinance, you're supposed to clear within 24 hours. So this property on East North Avenue at the southwest corner, I'm just gonna put them on blast right now. The southwest
And
corner
we are writing it down.
Yeah, southwest corner of Summit and North was already in violation last night when it wasn't fully cleared.
yes.
Okay.
And so in forestry, if they get a request, they will go out and inspect. That's going to be a $50 charge. It does escalate for subsequent events in the calendar year. Forestry will then refer it to the contractor, so sometimes that can take a day for them to come back from the inspections, assign it to a contractor. Contractor then, we give them 3 business days to come, but look, they are looking for that check too, so they know the sooner they get there, the more likely the snow is going to be there that they remove it. And then that charge also goes to the property owner depending on the width or the length of the sidewalk is going to determine the charge, as well as there's an administrative fee of $75 that's charged to the property owner. So it is pretty expensive for the city to shovel your sidewalk.
Yeah.
But we know that it is so critical for those folks that are walking in the city or have disabilities to have a fully width sidewalk, someone with strollers. So we really do hope that people living in properties do their part. At the same time, we do need to give people time to do that work.
And that's assessed to the property owner, correct?
Yes, it is charged to the property
Okay.
owner. We send them a bill. If they don't pay it by the time we assess the charges in October, then it will go on the property taxes.
Okay, great. Because I know that there are some landlords that are, in my opinion, sloppily saying to their tenants, "Hey, you guys got to shovel," right? And so, but it is the landlord who is ultimately responsible for the condition of the sidewalk, regardless of their tenants' actions or not.
It is the property owner's responsibility to make sure that the work gets done so people in Milwaukee can walk on our sidewalks.
Okay. Okay, great. I did get a correspondence that I just want to read here. This was Alderman Brower. This was the best snow removal execution of such a large dump of snow of a storm on the weekend that we've ever experienced in the 29 years we've lived on the east side. These are always make or break moments for alders. If it's the sentiment similar to ours, you should be allowed to take a victory lap. Well, DPW should take a victory lap on that one. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
There. Thank you guys so much, seriously, for all the work you're doing. I want to leave it to other alders. I'll probably think of other questions. I did get a mountain of emails about questions we have, but I'll let other alders go before I go again. If that's okay with the chair, or
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
yeah, I know Scott's been
I
waiting.
don't know if Alderwoman Moore or Alder Spiker's been
In the queue,
sitting
45
there
minutes.
very patient.
Sorry, I'm very thorough. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've been hearing this story for 10 years, and it took me 5 years to kind of get the rhythm of what these responses would be. Have we ever deigned to write down this in an Apple easy to digest fashion? Has Tiffany and team ever thought about doing a YouTube channel with little snippets, things to educate the public and honestly us, because we know a lot by the end of the season, but then the fire hose turns on for something else and we forget it all. And then we have to relearn it again the next season. And after a while you become Bob Bauman, but for the rest of us mere mortals, we have to try to recreate this knowledge anew. So I know you have all this at your fingertips. I know there's quite a bit on the various websites, but has there been any thought to systematically laying out what our policies are in an easily digestible way?
Good question, and thank you for that. And I do want to just take a quick opportunity. You alluded to it. We do have a snow and ice website for residents and alders alike. So that is,
Milwaukee.gov/snow.
and so that hasn't been yet thoroughly revised in several years. So actually, this past year we have been working on revamping that website. I mean, obviously, government websites aren't always the most intuitive and, you know, flashy, but we are doing our best to update that. We did also draft a snow and ice pamphlet that's a little more easily digestible that we can bring to town hall meetings and that you can pass out to your constituents. We did also
Might we send those out prior to a large storm coming in?
So we are mailing those out along with the municipal services bill to every
I'm saying
household.
to alders. Might we, when you see this huge storm coming, or it's the beginning of the season, might not we send that out to alders and their aides as a helpful reminder? Look, these are your resources, and lay them out.
That's the goal. We just didn't have time before the snowfall fell to finalize it. So I believe we uploaded the pamphlet.
The pamphlet's available on website and going out in mailings. I will have extra printed copies, so we're just waiting for those to arrive, and I will make sure that some make it to the city clerk's office to get to you all and your aides.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. With respect to the workers, 12 to 16-hour shifts are no joke, let alone doing this kind of work where attention is needed. I can't even imagine how exhausting that is. Do we have, so folks are paid overtime, which is compensation. Whether it's compensation enough, I guess, is the question. Are folks basically voluntold, hey, it's a snow emergency, we're gonna need you and you're working overtime, that's life?
Yes, unfortunately.
So do we have any mechanisms in place to check for mental exhaustion issues other than the self-reporting of the drivers themselves?
That's actually a really good question. We do let our supervisors and managers know that they are to be aware. We talk a lot about it throughout the season because although snow and ice is our most taxing operation, particularly in sanitation, staff are working these type of extended hours almost all year long. I believe also in some other areas. So yeah, mental exhaustion is something that supervisors, managers, they're trained to be watching for. We do ask drivers to self-report as well.
Right. I'm going to ask to shrink some of these answers just because I got a ton of questions, others
all
have
right.
questions. So with respect to managers being in charge, has there ever been a manager who's been brought up saying, look, you're not accurately reflecting the mental states of your employees, you're totally divorced by it, we got a complaint over here, it shows you're not doing your job? Has that ever happened, and has there ever been a penalty assessed, and if so, what was that penalty?
I mean, I don't know that I can specifically call out an instance, but I know there are times that managers have sent staff home.
Right, but I'm asking if somebody is failing. So self-reporting, hope that works. If that fails, you need the managers. Is there a mechanism in place to ensure the managers are held accountable for keeping tabs on the mental health of their employees and their exhaustion? Or do we wait till an accident happens before that search is launched?
So I think originally your question was, has that ever happened? I'm not aware of a situation where that's ever happened, but certainly our managers and supervisors absolutely are held to account, but I cannot
so?
I cannot I cannot remember a time that I have had to discipline a manager or supervisor based on employees' mental exhaustion.
So would it be more reasonable to assume that that is because it has never happened, or merely that our mechanisms of holding our supervisors accountable for this matter are not sufficient?
I guess that's something I would need to look more into. That's a really good point.
Yep, I would just suggest because everybody knows, hey, this is your job, but it's not really your job unless there is a penalty if you don't do your job. So,
Agreed.
Held for managers as well. So with respect to the amount of work here, we were in a real bad way with experience of our drivers a few years back. We had the reclasses, the market studies and stuff where we brought pay up for OD. We don't even call them ODWs anymore. What do we call
Equipment
them?
operators.
Now we call them equipment operators. Okay. And these are folks with CDLs, which are, after the new requirements got raised, they're kind of licenses to print money, because you got a CDL, you have lots of options there, and we want to attract them to the city. So that's why I guess I was asking a little bit also for selfish reasons about how we're taking care of employees, just in addition to the fact they're human beings and deserve to be taken care of. But with respect to the work required, so how many routes do we have right now, salt routes in the city?
90.
Ballpark?
90.
90. And how many did we have, and you don't have to know this off the top of your head, but I want to say 5 years ago and then maybe 10 years ago, have we shrunk by like 30% or anything like that, or we stand?
It has, as far as I know, it hasn't changed.
Okay.
I mean, I think, and I don't know if you're going here, but some of the veteran staff
Yeah.
will, remember the days when they worked 16, 18, and even up to 20 hours. We obviously don't think that that's a good work practice, and we don't ask
Yeah, I
that
wasn't going there.
anymore.
I was trying to figure out whether the number of routes we have has gone down, because that would indicate each worker's responsibility would go
Yeah.
up. But we think we've held steady at least the last decade or
At
so.
least the last 5 to
And
10
if
years.
maybe we can do a little deeper dive and see
Let
if
me
that's
interject, we
changed.
used to have a
Yeah.
lot more equipment.
Yes.
I mean, back in everything dates from, the modern era dates from 1979, when there was a massive series of storms, and everything shut down, and there was great gnashing of teeth and all kinds of other issues. And back then, there were 500 pieces of equipment.
Oh, wow.
So with respect, though, to the last 10 years, 15 years, and so I guess I'd be curious whether people's routes have gotten bigger, and I'd be especially curious now that we've done the rerouting. So the purpose of the rerouting was to take the mains that you're in charge of and put them close to the residentials you're in charge of, right?
That was one, and the second one was to right-size the mileage. So in the past, we had a very broad breadth, one route might have 20 lane miles, another route up to 80, and so now they're a little more equal, and the average is about,
The average is still around, it depends on if you're talking center line miles or traffic miles. I think it's about 33 center line miles, but a little closer to 60 to 70 of actually driving miles, which is what we often care about for snow and ice.
Right.
which is significant, which
please.
is quite a bit longer, we talked about that last year, than our surrounding municipalities that are about 30.
Right, and all of us who have districts next to burbs are keenly aware of that when everybody says, hey, Greenfield's done, what are you guys doing? So with respect to, let's see, we're just asking about routes. Oh, do drivers get to pick based on seniority which route they get?
Yes.
Okay. Have you found that leads then to any sorts of issues in terms of you get then more experienced drivers who are always, I mean, you want to build that experience, of course, because some of your drivers are artists. If you
Yes.
see how they do, you're like, holy cow, how was that even possible? And that's why I will encourage Alder Brower never to get a CDL, because the number of years, you can get a CDL, but just don't get behind one of our plows. Because it takes a number of years to acquire
Yes.
that sort of
Many
experience,
years.
and it's not
Many years.
I mean, if we're fond of having too many, if we're fearing we have too many mailboxes in the city, then I would suggest you employ the city council to plow. But all in good fun. So the number of lane miles we're looking at then has not been equalized totally, but it's closer than it was before.
Much better, yes.
Do we find then that folks who have shorter routes or maybe are just more adept at getting through quicker, when they get done, do they just go back to the yard and sit?
That is not the requirement. The requirement is that the city of Milwaukee is every driver's responsibility. So once they're done with their route, they're to check in with a supervisor and be reassigned to help someone who is either new or perhaps have had a breakdown. I think if I can just throw in some numbers, there was something close to 305 breakdowns this last event.
Yep.
So when breakdowns happen, they're reassigned to help those routes. And everyone should be on the street, salting, plowing, being active during the entire course of their shift.
And so some of the cameras we have up include cameras at the ward yard to make sure there aren't trucks sitting there. I mean,
Yes.
supervisors would be there too, I would
Yes.
assume, and you'd be in a bad way if you were just sitting there while there was a snow operation. So I'm not accusing anybody of doing that, but of course, as always, trust but verify.
Yes.
You want to make sure nobody's sitting idle. With respect to, so my district had a really bad time, I think, compared to what it has had in the past, and sounds like some adjacent districts. I've talked offline, we can explore it in more detail once this operation over. Grand Ram neighborhood, a couple of years now, has had a really bad time. So this leads me, so one, I want to do a deep dive on that offline, but two, so between Grange and Ramsey, west of 27th, basically, into Greenfield. Call it the green thumb because it sticks into Greenfield. Do we have anywhere near the number of plow chasers that we used to have? What is the role of a plow chaser? The Subaru was mentioned earlier. I have one because one, it's a great dad mobile, but two, it also can survive getting stuck to some extent. I have been stuck, but it's been when it's really bad. So plow chasers besides alder people, how many do we have citywide? Do you deploy them differently in the district, or what is the grounds on which you deploy plow chasers?
Yeah, over the years, we've actually reduced the plow chasers. They get paid about $80 an hour, and we don't.
Why?
Because they are hourly employees, and so therefore they get paid overtime. And they are usually engineers out of infrastructure because they're the only people who don't have a CDL, because again, anyone with a CDL is going to be in a truck.
Right.
And they're the people that are available to us to do that work.
We couldn't hire out retired DPW workers who want some money?
Put those people in trucks.
Okay. Yeah, the ones we call in the cavalry who
Right.
come in off the flank when we need them. But surely there's a way we could pay somebody less than $80 an hour to drive around in a Subaru and look for.
And I have to be honest, so there's a couple things at play right now. We haven't necessarily found better quality, and I've written this neighborhood down because I do think we should do a deep dive and figure out what's going on there. So that said, I'm not negating that part, but we have not found that we do better quality with or without plow chasers. Now that we
Okay.
have cameras in trucks as well, we feel like we're going to get better work and a better eye on the road with those cameras than we would with asking someone to go drive around and tell us.
Yeah, makes sense.
Sure.
You know me, would rather leverage technology there.
Absolutely.
With respect to the cameras, though, are they operational right now?
Yes,
Were they in use this last time?
yes,
Oh, so then we'll have footage of what happened or
Yes.
didn't happen?
Yes.
Okay, but the cameras only work where the trucks were. If you're not there, then you don't have a camera feed on that.
but what I do have is GPS location on when they were there, if they were there, if a street was missed, how many times a truck went past an area.
Do you have a post-storm audit, as it were, to figure out whether there were Hey, gentlemen.
What happened?
I just waited 45 minutes. So, with respect to the GPS, is there an after report that's done to say, oh my gosh, there's this giant hole we didn't even think was there where the plows just didn't get to? Or is that something that can be done more in real time?
Yep. So we do that auditing in real time because we want to make sure that trucks are getting to every single street and nothing is being missed. So our yard staff do it in real time when they're out in the yards. Also, our management staff back at the weather room audit those maps and take a look at both camera footage and GPS. And we do, after every big storm, do a post-storm meeting, debriefing, what we did well, what we need to do better at next time. And that'll be scheduled for this storm later, I believe next week.
Okay, I have some leaf questions, but I'll save them for later. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chair. I know you next.
Alderwoman Moore.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Just a really quick follow-up questions. First, let me just express my gratitude and tie on to my colleague. You all have, I volunteered last year and sat in a truck and I was like, dear God, not sure how you all do it, but thank you. And to our DPW crew and staff, it is hard work. I want to remind my residents as well that, yep, even though that we had some mishaps, we're gonna, that's why we're having these conversations we got to figure out how to get better. But thank you for the communication, Danielle, over the weekend, because you were very responsive and I just appreciated that, just so I can calm the residents that were calling and texting and emailing. So I appreciate your responsiveness. Thank you. Just a really quick follow-up questions. Alderman Brower asked a ton load, which answered quite a bit of the questions that I had in regard to the private property. So we know that they get a fee. What happens with business owners like gas stations or, private business owners? Is it the same concept with them?
Yeah, they're treated just like any other property, that they're responsible for that sidewalk and would be fined, and we'd assign a contractor to correct in the same way.
Perfect.
There's no distinction from residential or commercial.
Perfect.
Just sidewalks on property.
Okay, thank you. And then one of the questions that I have is it was brought up, Alderman Bauman brought up about, we had X number, 500 pieces of equipment. What are we dealing with right now? Are we dealing with a staffing issue, an equipment issue, or both?
I think our staffing definitely could always be better. The one thing I say all the time is snow and ice is DPW's priority. So when snow and ice happens, all the other services take the pause and people are routed to snow and ice. That said, so for example, it's still important to note that our equipment operators are still at a 16% vacancy rate. So it is still increasingly difficult to recruit and retain CDL operators for that particular position. DPW-wide, we see, electricians, obviously, very difficult to recruit right now and retain. Again, anyone with a CDL is just really, really high value. Anyone with a CDL still at the City of Milwaukee working, I commend them, because they have seen us through some of the hardest times that the city has probably ever seen. And if they're still here with us, they deserve a lot, because a lot of kudos to them. So I would say, staffing still is a concern. Equipment's still a concern. We have, some 23-year-old Packers that go out of service quite often. So, downtime due to equipment repairs is definitely a consideration. It was definitely a consideration last year during that storm. Right now, our replacement cycle for sensors, which are the salt trucks, is about 13 years. And our oldest sensor is 17 years old. That's 2009. And then as far as our Packers go, those right now are at a 15-year replacement cycle, and our oldest is 23 and a half years old. So as you can imagine, those are more expensive to maintain than they are to buy new ones, but it's just a balancing act that you have to always move forward. We buy what we can. and we repair what else we can. And as I indicated, there was about 305 repair work orders that were completed over the weekend, a total of 384, which means that there are some that are rendered, out of service for several days.
Yeah. Is it possible, Danielle, to get us, so I know we had this whole conversation with the fire department about equipment. Is that something that has been shared with the council prior, as far as this is the equipment that we have, obviously the ones that are on the ground doing the work, right? This is, how long we've had them. This is typically the lifeline, right? We should be, really replacing them during this time. And, and I know the repairs and things like that are helpful, but if we can get a list of that, I think that would be extremely helpful for me as we, again, think about, because these are just one of the things that our residents are looking for when they, the first thing people told me were, I pay my taxes, and my taxes have gone up, and I should be receiving quality city services, and they're right. They're absolutely right. And so what we then need to do is figure out, what does that look like, whether it's staffing, whether it's equipment. What does that look like to, move us in that direction? But just us having that sort of information obviously will help us a little bit advocate for the right resources in the right places. So if I can make that data request, that would be amazing.
Yes, we can get that.
Also, really quick, you mentioned about the 90 routes. So if folks are voluntold, that we got to clear the snow, do the 90, and again, staff is limited based on all sorts of things. Do the 90 routes typically get completed?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, many times over.
Okay.
Because, again, when I talk about that they have to stay on those main routes,
Sure.
they're salting and plowing over and over and over again. As the snow is falling,
Sure.
it just keeps covering. So they are going around those routes over and over and over again. And then when they go into the districts, same exact thing. So, for example, plowing on a residential street, if it's wide open and not parked up, is going to look like a pass down the right side and a pass down the left side, and sometimes even a pass down the middle.
Yeah.
Middle pass
Yep.
first, then
Yep.
right, then left. So, they've probably gone through every route at least three times.
Are there some of our residential areas that may not get as much? And I preface this by saying we have some dead ends, maybe some cul-de-sacs, or just some just very prescriptive areas that don't get as much love from what my residents say. Is that a possibility that there may be certain residential areas that might not get the same sort of attention as in a regular, because again, it's easy to go down the street or down, what I mean?
Right.
Based on sort of logistic of the layout.
Sure. So what I'll say is there's sort of two answers to that. First of all, dead ends cul-de-sacs require a different type of piece of equipment because our regular sensors and packers cannot maneuver those tight spaces. So they have to back down
Yep.
and push out. And they do that. However, that means that an end loader, a private contractor, comes back during the course of the operation and sweeps clean at a dead end or a cul-de-sac. And so that is probably the variance in service level that those constituents are experiencing. The other maybe variance is, again, in a route, if there is, 60 lane miles worth
Yep.
of service and one truck, there's always a beginning and always an end. And even if they drive through it multiple times, there's still always a beginning and an end, and depending on when the temperatures drop, how much traffic it gets, can all impact quality. And so one of our veteran managers who retired recently, likes to remind us that there's three components to snow and ice fighting, and that is time, temperature, and traffic. So when you put down salt, when our staff uses salt and we're fighting snow, salt takes time to activate on the road. You can't just put it down and it miraculously eats up all the snow, right? And then in conjunction, it needs traffic. That's why you'll see different quality on a main street versus a resident street. If only 3 cars drive over it, it isn't grinding that salt up and activating things. But if there's lots of traffic, it activates quicker. And temperature. If the temperatures drop, it's freezing up on you. If temperatures stay warm, if the pavement temperatures are warm, that salt will activate and it'll melt down real nicely. So time, temperature, traffic, and that is the key to fighting snow.
Thank you. And I'll wrap it up by asking this final question. So, and it's sort of alluding to leaves, but I think it'll also tie into snow collection as well. I know that you talked about the GPS and things like that. I've had residents that reached out, more than one, several, that said, yeah, the system says that they've picked up. Nobody's been here. How do you all sort of, I guess, prove that something has been done, whether it's either leaf collection or the snow plowing?
Sure, absolutely. So I think I'll address leaves first, because I know that has been contentious and sort of difficult for obviously the entire city. Right now, our processes are not necessarily what we're trying to develop. Now that we have Samsara in our trucks, also our sanitation trucks have Rubicon, those are brand new tech installations that we're still working to develop how those operations can improve. We know the potential is there, it just takes us a little time. But right now, remembering that on the snow map, that we hope to improve that, but what it looks like right now, if it says collected, it might not mean it's completed, right? It just means that we've sort of done that last collection, but we know we're going back. That's probably more a limitation of technology, as Rick Myers mentioned. Right now, it's very paper and pen intensive. Crews are, marking X's on maps, handing it over to the other collection driver who's going to collect it. Then it goes to an office staff member who is entering into the system to make that map dynamic. So it's cumbersome. It's sort of like step 0.5 in our attempt to improve. We really think that over the next year or two, we're going to see much better communication to the public. We have to develop it. We have to create it. It isn't out of the box, right? No one is selling us an out of the box technology, right? They give us kind of the bare technology, and then they say, well, what do you want to do with it? We have to kind of develop what that looks like.
I appreciate that, and I definitely would love for us to have conversations about what we need to do differently for leaf collection,
Definitely.
whether it's folks bagging it up, just something different, because right now what we're doing just unfortunately isn't working. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Mark Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you, sir. Thank you. I think I'm going to share the same sentiments as sharing my appreciation for what y'all did on this snow collection. I think, ironically, this is the 3rd year since I've been elected that we had a file talking about the snow removal, and it's come to be in the ongoing cycle, but I feel like every year it has improved, in my opinion. So thank y'all for y'all hard work and everything of that nature. The 3 questions that I have. One, I have comments more than questions, honestly, but I think with this leaf collection, this is what I've been telling my constituents, that the leaves have been falling late.
Yep.
They've been falling real late, and people have been doing it. Like, I think we were still doing leaf collection last year or this year until January. And they've been falling later. So I think a snow plow actually blocked a couple of my constituents' driveways during a snow plow where they couldn't even get out, where it's solidified and stuff, and they couldn't get off of work. So I will say, we need to keep an eye on that. And I can have a conversation with you offline to have the address taken care of. But so I guess the public, these residents know when these leaves fall. So it's just kind of like, I just feel like it's like, let's get serious. here with this. It's like, y'all are working as hard as y'all can to alleviate some of the stress. And yes, we understand that there are taxpayers that are paying their dollars and stuff of that nature, but we can't fight nature.
True.
Plain and simple. The question that I have is, there are streets, and I'm speaking on my street in particular, my direct street. There are cars that are parked on both sides at the street pass. So I see the middle pass and I see it going through the left thing. What are we doing as far as parking restrictions? Like, I think last year we instructed ticket them. Get them
Absolutely.
towed.
Absolutely.
What are we doing? Like, what? Like the
Yes.
tow them. I
Yes.
want them towed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's an ongoing thing, and it's a snow emergency. So if it's a snow emergency, you're supposed to park on one side or the other.
Right.
So, and I put it out to e-notify to my residents, like, I instructed them, if y'all see them and they're giving it, because I did the same ride along when we did the snowfall and got hit with the
remember.
freeze and everything. Like, y'all couldn't go through streets because people were parked on both sides.
Right.
And we're going to continue to get those calls saying that we can't do it, but we're not holding our neighbors accountable. So it's like, what are we doing far as placating the cars that are being an obstruction to these passes?
Absolutely. And I think, is Peter still here?
No, Peter.
Okay,
yeah.
well, that's okay. I can talk a little bit about it. So first of all, I will say that as of Tuesday, we did issue close to 6,000 citations across the city. The second thing I'll say is we are still working on how we have enough staff, because we simply, parking enforcement officer is another area where we, in fact, I would say my number one turnaround area, where we simply have a very difficult time keeping staffing levels going. It's dangerous work. People are not necessarily nice to parking enforcement officers, so we have lots of turnover. It's lots of vacancy, lots of turnover. That said, we're still working on how we real time tow when when we're actually plowing, but we can actually make an impact across the city. Because where the challenge lies is, especially in Alderman Bauer's district, and Alderman Bauman's district, and in Perez's district, we normally allow double-sided parking. And so what happens is you say, okay, it's snowing, we need to get plows through, and you've got 50,000 cars sitting between all the districts. I don't know. We're working on and trying to figure out what do we do with this? How do we handle this? What I will say, because we do want to do something, we can't do nothing, right? Is we are very proactive as far as what I would consider the abandoned cars, or the snow, what we call internally snowbirds, which is we're now 24, 48 hours after snow has fallen, you have not moved, we are placarding and towing immediately. So, if your car is still covered in snow, get it uncovered and move it, because we will tow.
Yeah, because I got like two that's literally
Yep.
right on the corner of 76th Street.
76 and what?
Yes.
I'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
I called out a property at the committee here. Come on.
76.
We'll talk later.
In the Silver Spring neighborhood.
Okay.
But that's the concern that I see throughout my district. I have a lot of snowbirds in like the area, because like I can see where both passes have been through, and then I just see like the big old wide
Navigation around it. That is very frustrating. And I'll turn it over to Peter, but yeah, that is frustrating. That is something that we're continually tackling. In fact, I think beyond you all, then the frustration, I know our operators are frustrated because they want to get down these streets and they want to do a good job. Peter?
Peter Knox, Parking Services Manager. So we are kind of changing some things up. Just here where we wrote about 5,900 citations just for not parking right during a snow emergency. Right now, we are actively in the process of towing the vehicles because we have to wait 24, 48 hours. One of my concerns that we have to address is, obviously, we have a lot of exception streets. Alderman is correct. People are not following the rules, and we know that. There's a lot of reasons for that. I've talked about, we've increased compliance. We have some measures in place police. We talk about, the habitual parking violator ordinance that's going to affect January 1st, so that will force people to pay citations, which might help compliance as well, is what we're hoping. One of the challenges during snowstorms that we saw last February, that storm, was because of the lack of compliance, we towed over 500 cars. Okay, and the tow lot only has so much capacity. Also, think about this. If you're towing from the north side all the way to the tow lot, that's quite a hike. That takes time, right? We could have towed a lot more cars. We actually dispatched over 1,400 tows last February. So what we're working on right now as we speak, we piloted last night a few of it, is doing relocation areas across the city. So close to in every district. So what this will allow for is we can move cars quicker. Also, the citizens can get their car right away. They still pay for the tow, they get the citation, all that. Their car gets relocated to an area in the district, and then the tow companies can move quicker. We can get the roads cleared faster. So we are actively planning that right now. We did try some last night. The other factor to come into play is what we like about it is also the fact that all of our systems for the towing system, the police have it, call centers, anywhere anybody calls, they will see where their car is located at. We do this during special events like runs and marathons. We'll relocate to an area. So we figure, why not try this during snow emergencies, because we know the sheer volume. We do have challenges. As far as the compliance goes, we have changed things up. It does take time. It does take patience. I think the council's put together some great things I think will help with compliance, getting people to follow those rules by having stricter measures. So that's kind of where we're at. We are actively towing right now. We towed 98 cars last night, and we're towing as we speak.
Okay.
What neighborhood?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
What's that?
What neighborhood did the towing concentrate in?
Well, we just started, so right now we're going back around. We did a lot in your area as far as the citations. I give you some of the numbers, but we doubled up the following that as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Really quick, Mr. Chair, in regards to that point, if a person finds their car, because now, technology, an individual can find their car, do they still have to pay? Is that license plate still associated with that ticket? That ticket and the tow fee, so regardless, they still have to pay it?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with respect to the parking issue Ms. Rodriguez had mentioned, you might want to stick around, Peter.
Oh, stick around, Peter.
So with respect to the parking situation, Ms. Rodriguez had provided some context, which some members might not know because they weren't here at that time. But during COVID, we suspended the odd even rule, thinking, well, you're going to be stuck in your house, so why should you have to go across the street and move your car? Or, that was going to be a great burden. And then we did that way too long. And then nobody moved their car anymore once we said the rules were back in place. So unforced error on our part. And now we have more and more exception streets. I was here when we passed a rule basically singling out districts. This was years ago, as basically everybody gets an exception. Everybody can park on both sides, like throughout the year, unless there's a snow emergency. And what I think you guys are pointing out is it's very hard to go from I don't have to move to now everybody has to go on the other side of the street. And Kovac, former Alder Kovac, now Budget Director Kovac, had the saying, which we've heard many times, or might have heard at the time, if there's snow on the ground, move around. So that little mnemonic would help people, but it's not good enough a mnemonic that it makes people actually comply. So what I'm driving to here is DPW kind of pushes back when we do things like say, hey, allow both side parking here, 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 here. But we kind of reap the costs, would you say, when winter comes and nobody moves their cars. Is that fair?
I mean, that is fair, and I think that's why we push back when electeds want double-sided parking. Now, obviously, we understand there's a lot of districts with more residents and lots of cars, but I think it's also a philosophical question, right? Because, we're trying to incentivize alternate modes of transportation, reduced, air pollutions and better air quality, bus, bike, etc. That is what we're trying to promote. And that said, allowing for double-sided parking does impact operations. It impacts the ability for safety vehicles to get down streets in some instances. It can make garbage and recycling collection extremely dangerous for staff that are doing that in the right-of-way. And then when we do need people to move, we see that they are now in the habit of double-side parking whenever they want. And so getting them to move means that our enforcement efforts have to be such that it's extremely harsh and extremely punitive. And quite frankly, I don't know that we have capacity, quite honestly, not only with our parking enforcement officers, but also with our tow contractors. And I don't know that our citation fees, even though we're at state statute limitations, and the majority of, I think, all of those citations at this point, they're just not punitive enough. But also we have to balance how punitive do we want to be to change that behavior. And I think that's the broader conversation for the council and for policymakers and leadership alike.
So here's a question you can't answer, then a framework for providing an answer. So a question you can't answer is, hey, if everybody just moved like they were supposed to, how much quicker would operations go?
Yeah, that would be difficult for me to tell you.
But the common sense answer is a hell of a lot faster, like hell of a lot faster.
Sure, I mean, I hear them, so that tells me yes.
Yeah.
I hear them back there, so that tells me
if
yes.
If the strategy was bring folks so that we don't yell at you that much, good, because they're human beings too. But the plus side is I get to hear the truth from the actual driver sitting here by their reactions.
Absolutely.
In my
I mean, if I could wish anything, we wouldn't do any overnight parking, right? We would be like Wauwatosa, or, where it would be wide open for the staff, right? They would go up and down, and they'd call it a day, but that just simply isn't the reality of a dense urban environment.
And I don't want to seem out of touch with, there's districts like the 3rd, the 12th, the 4th in certain sections where density is just so great, there's kind of no other choice. But to your point earlier, if we're trying to get people to use alternative modes of transportation, if we're trying to keep track of whether people are exceeding occupancy limits, which are super hard for DNS to enforce, cars are a distal tracker of that. We could be more aggressive than we currently are about insisting people move around. But if we do, one point you raised intrigued me greatly, given what I went through with the habitual parking violator file, which was going to be heavily promoted by the mayor and didn't show up to my press conference, but that's okay. We'll get it on January 1st. We do need these cars to move. If they don't move, we have no other choice but to tow them. Has there been an equity lens applied to where we're towing to say like, oh, in this area, we seem to be towing a lot in the 12th, but it seems like socioeconomically, if we had to pick where we were towing, we'd prefer not the 12th.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'd summon the 12th just by saying that question.
I can address that. So previously, our citation software system didn't track citations by district, which you get those requests, and that's why we can't always answer it. And the other thing now, when we have all these exception streets, what we are working with our vendors right now is to change the platform to allow us to basically look at where all the citations are happening, where all the tows are happening. And I'm also really curious on, and it will be, I think, beneficial for us to have a better understanding, is looking at now with the increased exception streets, how many of these citations are happening in exception streets, then we can correlate that to what district as well. That will inform a lot of our decisions too. I also think it'd be beneficial for all of you, as we talk about exception streets, to see what are the ramifications of that. Other thing to factor in, and the fine for the snow emergency, it is pretty steep. It's $50 and it goes 100 and 150, so it does get steep. Keep in mind as well.
I'm sorry, what is 50, 150?
50 to 100, then 150.
So depending on when you don't pay it.
No, it's separate citation. So first time you get one, it's $50. Second time you get it's $100.
Second time in what duration of time?
Right.
In that calendar year.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
the other thing to also factor in, and back to what you were mentioning about habitual parking violator ordinance. So keep in mind now, if you are in Bowman's district and you're not following the rules, okay, come January 1, if you have 5 or more citations, doesn't matter what they are, you get towed. You're not getting your car out till you pay those. So when I talk about patience, some of these levers that you guys have all put into place, they will work, because now you think, so you come February, someone that doesn't follow the rules and they have to pay, now all those fees, $600 to get their car out, just in citation, the tow fees.
Or come up with a payment plan and sit there.
Oh yeah, they do pay a plan. Yeah, so I'm not trying to be like that. I'm just saying there's options. There's options, arrangements to handle citations. Let's say it like that. Which there's options for. They also have an option before they get towed to set up payment plans as well. My point of this is that those levers act as a deterrent. Right now, we could write 1 million citations a year. It doesn't mean it's going to change anything if nobody's going to pay.
100%.
We used to write 700,000 citations a year. We upped it this year. It doesn't work unless people take note and actually follow through with it. And some things we're doing, I think, will help. But back to the whole equity part, definitely. Once we have some more data, which I'm working with the software vendors on, and I will have it for this winter. So I do have some ways, but we're trying to make it more accessible so we can analyze each storm. Right now, parking, what we're doing is, like I said, we're piloting some relocation areas. We're analyzing the data. We're going to come up with a report and say, hey, what worked, what didn't work, and use that to inform the next storm that comes through. And that goes for problematic districts like yours as well.
Yeah, I can comment, because we had this debate about the odd even and abolishing odd even.
Yeah, before,
It had-
as long as I have the floor,
The first big storm,
Mr.
where you
Dean.
could put it to the test. and it had-
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Chair.
let's have some decorum here.
I do want to add that.
Please, you're the
I
chair.
do want to start wrapping this up. I'm ready to move on, honestly, but we'll let you.
A factual misstatement that I'd like to correct.
No, that's fine. When you wrap up, then we have Burgelis in the queue. Perez, I don't know if you want to get in, but I want to wrap this up within 10 minutes. Thank you.
So the factual misstatement, thank you, Mr. Chair, was because I was in the ordinance, we will release only if you either pay all your tickets or set up a court date. There's no provision for a payment plan to get out of jail. You can do the payment plan before you ever get to the point, and that's recommended, but we talked about trying to incorporate that aspect to get on a payment plan right there, and that was not allowed under the state law that allowed our enabling legislation.
And if I could just piggyback off that, like even right now, we're doing massive advertising right now because we kind of, we're not towing yet. So set payment plans to the city to help, make those roads so you don't get towed. Our goal is to not tow vehicles. Our goal is that everybody just follows the rules. But yes, you are correct. It's like, so they have to make arrangements or a couple options for that if they do get towed for that.
So my last question relates to leaves. The explanation seems to be, hey, what is that keeps going off? All right. So the explanation of the leaves was, hey, they fell super late and this fluke storm hit super early. We always extend our leaf deadline, like we have every year that I can remember. At what point do we say, hey, maybe we should do something with respect to the seriousness of our leaf collection that we do with respect to the seriousness of our snow collection? Snow parking restrictions. So just like if there's a snow emergency, you have to move around. Could we ever contemplate having November be leaf move around month, or if not a whole month, giving a period of time, maybe working it through different sectors, because it's silly to do the whole city if you're only in this section, but requiring basically odd even parking to proceed to facilitate leaf collection. Because what I see throughout my district is it goes way slower because cars are in the way and people park in front of or behind leaf piles, so you can't get it without doing feat of nature.
That's what we did with the street cleaning, essentially. My neighborhoods.
So that it's just a suggestion.
Very expensive
Yeah.
operation.
I was just going to say, it is a highly expensive operation, and quite honestly, we don't have the staffing level to replicate that across the entire city. Honestly.
I think we misunderstood what my suggestion was. Just like
maybe
you
we
have
did.
to move when there's snow on the ground, you have to do odd even parking. We could have it during the day that you have to be on the odd street on an odd day and even
That's
street
exactly
on
what we
the...
did for street cleaning.
So how's that
Pilot
expensive?
basis. Because you needed the tow trucks, the supervisors, the street sweeper. It was 3 times the normal manpower required for a typical street cleaning operation.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But it got cleaned. The cleaners did.
Phone's ringing.
Okay, well, we can pursue offline, but the idea was, you know, the parking tickets are supposed to be covering the cost, as it were. If it's not, what does that say? I mean, we've had a larger discussion about whether municipal tickets even matter anymore, or whether it's a piece of paper that you throw in the trash. That's a much larger discussion that isn't tied to the snow. But thank you for your answers. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your indulgence.
Alderman Burgellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 6 minutes left for the meeting. I'll try to be brief. I really do appreciate all of the efforts from snowplow drivers. Last year, the complaint that my office got was that there weren't enough plows out on the road. This year, the complaint was that they were plowing too much and there were leaves blocking driveways and disturbing leaf piles. So I wanted to ask, what's the plan for leaves after the snow melts? Is the department going to get to everything before the end of the year? And then, given our conversations we had during budget hearings just in October, 6 weeks ago, is the department ready to reconsider the 4-day pause for leaf collection during the Thanksgiving weekend moving forward?
Okay, I'll try to answer everything. If I miss something, just let me know. We are right now still planning on what, if anything, we're doing with leaves. Obviously, there's a couple layers. Any driveways or sidewalks are impeded due to leaves and snow being frozen and pushed back. We're doing those case by case as we're alerted to them and as we see them. As far as collection goes, we're right now planning what equipment we're going to use to collect the larger leaf piles that were left that we plowed around, so that we know we're definitely working towards. What we're also trying to figure out is how we manage some of that leaf debris, if you will, that got pushed back. It's a couple things. While it's frozen and still in the snow, it's a very different type of collection process than it would be if it were just a regular leaf. So we are still working on figuring out what that looks like. Many municipalities around us has basically just said, it's too late now. There's nothing we can do. You're going to have to wait till spring. I think we internally want to have more discussion on that, especially because we know there's a lot of large leaf piles still out there. So if you wouldn't mind indulging us for a couple days so that we can figure out what our plan is. We're still working on that. I feel like there was something else.
The Thanksgiving weekend.
Thanksgiving weekend, yes. I would say that is a very challenging request. Our sanitation staff have already given up their New Year's Eve holiday. This is an extremely difficult position to recruit and retain for. It would be very difficult for me to tell them that they also now, on the heels of a snow and ice season where they know they're going to have to work 12 to 14-hour days throughout the winter, to also say, and this is this holiday you can't have with your family, especially for something that is seasonal and we cannot necessarily plan for sure on. If leaves drop early, we can get to them and it's not a factor. If they drop later and it snows, that's where it becomes a problem. That is something that's weather dependent, and I would not be a proponent of having my staff work during holidays. That is their last holiday.
So last week we had 4-day notice that a large storm was coming over the weekend. Were any crews out voluntarily on Friday before the snow fell, or Saturday before the snow fell?
Snow fell Saturday.
Yeah,
crews were out.
on Friday, we had a citywide anti-icing operation that started at 9 a.m. And then after the anti-icing of the side streets, mains, and so on. 3 a.m. Saturday morning, we were, by that point on, around the clock, working on snow and ice.
So that's a no. Would it be easier to have double crews to help collect some of the leaves before snow falls, or have multiple crews spend months trying to get them down the road after they've been pushed up into grass?
Would it,
I'm not sure what he's asking.
yeah, I'm not sure if we got that, but if the question is if we could have, you know, double the staff and equipment in this shorter fall period, yeah, that would help. But that's not, you know, hasn't been feasible.
Well, so my question is, would it be easier to double up for a day or two before snow falls this past week?
I think the concern.
And get a lot of the leaves out of the way before the snow falls?
Yeah.
Or spend months chipping away at frozen
Sure.
piles of ice leaves?
I think I understand what you're getting at now, Alderman. And the concern is that if we double up leaf collection crews in the days preceding, that means we're knocking off garbage and recycling. And I don't think that is something
But we
we
did
want
that anyway.
either. For snow for one day, but to knock it off for multiple days, I think would be pretty concerning.
Anyway, yeah, that'd be.
Okay. Thank you for those answers. Moving on, there's a balance for parking enforcement and parking equipment, right? I get that. There is a file in finance, and I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but that's moving funding away from purchasing new vehicles, safer right-hand drive vehicles for parking enforcement agents.
How much longer we go?
Or parking enforcement next week in finance. How do you balance having safer equipment or not having equipment? I hear some of my colleagues complain about parking enforcement not being what it should have been, but then also not making sure that DPW has the equipment and the vehicles that they need to do their job safely.
Yeah, so obviously safety is always number one. You know, I don't want to get into the whole equipment thing. We already know that we do have an aging fleet, which I know the commissioner spoke to about, so at some point we do need to address that. The one thing I'll just say is when we look at equipment is when we do a snow emergency, what's different than normal operations for parking is we pretty much, it's all call, everybody's on. To get those 5,900 citations, to get them most of the area, we have to have as many POs as possible. That takes more equipment. So if you figure, say on a third shift, we normally are running 30 Jeeps, and we bring in 60 people or 50 people during a snow emergency. That is more equipment. So the older the equipment, if it's not working or so forth, then we do have to double up and stuff. So, the equipment things, look at a lot of departments, it is an issue. It's something we do have to address at some point. But I can hope that answers your question, Alderman.
How much more difficult will it be if we have another snow emergency this year without those 7 or 9 new right-hand drive Jeeps?
They're not additional vehicles, they're replacement.
They're the replacement. What I will, yeah.
Capacity is the same.
Yeah, what I will tell you is, the last 2 nights, we had to double up 5 POs because it's not that we need more vehicles, it's to replace ones that are in the shop because they're old, high miles. So we had stuff being serviced, so we didn't have quite enough Jeeps for every PO, so we, teamed up, which we can do. Obviously, the longer that goes, it's going to get worse and worse if that replacement schedule doesn't take place at some point.
So when you say double up, you're putting 2 officers in 1 vehicle?
Correct.
So that's less efficient, fewer
It
tickets.
does, yes. We don't get as far through the city, you are correct.
So if our goal is to have less parking enforcement, then we shouldn't buy these new vehicles.
The number of vehicles does affect our ability to, in situations during snow emergencies, yes, because we do need equipment for that.
All right. Thank you for your answers. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your indulgence. I went 2 minutes over your scheduled end time of your meeting.
Alderman Perez.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I just had a couple quick questions. I'm one of the districts that has the parking on both sides of the street. And then I do have several, I forgot the number, I think it's 25 that are way too narrow, and they're bound by the December 1st and March 1st parking. Maybe for anyone listening, or just to get some clarity, in the past, there's been some preemptive outreach to those areas because I'm one of the district that not only suffers from the amount of density that we have, the amount of vehicles, I think in 53204 are the most registered vehicles in the entire state. So we have many generations of families living in homes. So even when folks are supposed to move, there's no place to go because it's a parking desert. So what's the expectation from DPW with that understanding, especially in areas where these narrow streets just have nowhere to go? In the past, the only public school in the neighborhood that I had was Lincoln Avenue. They resurfaced and reconstructed their asphalt lot to be much greener, which is a great thing for the students and the neighborhood. But it was the only MPS alternative I had for folks to be able to have some parking relief. No other public school is doing that in my entire district. So I'm just asking, when you guys do your analysis and you're thinking about the amount of parking tickets and you talk about equity, what do we do when there just isn't anywhere to park?
No, that's a very valid question. One of the things, I'll take two approaches to it. Your district and now District 4 as well, with a lot of exception streets, we are more proactive in trying to get communication out. So flyers were put out before the storm on every vehicle, saying what their options are and so forth, informational stuff. So we're expanding outreach and we'll continue to do so. We're always looking at different platforms we can use as well. We got we've done a lot with that, but we'll always look to grow that. As far as what and I don't have the answer yet. When I talk about relocation areas, and that's for towing, I'm also thinking, are there other ways we can kind of look at that? You mentioned schools. I know we have surface lots that, there are streets in Milwaukee that we found streets that do not get parked up. That's where we would tow to. But maybe it's an option. Hey, we have a location. If it's not, there's not a school around, but maybe there's a location on the street. Hey, this is an option. Yes, you might have to go a little bit farther, but you could park your car here, not get towed or cited or stuff like that. So I think it's a challenge and it's a valid question, and I think it's trying to explore options. I can tell you, my whole parking team's new. The managers, everybody across the board, we are really looking at things with a different lens. And a lot of it's from the feedback we're getting from you. You guys bring up valid concerns, and we don't disagree with them, but we're trying to explore certain ways, and we're open to suggestions, ideas, and we've taken some of those. But I think your area specifically, we can canvass the area and see if there are options and see if there's some feasible things that we can look at to assist with that.
That'd be helpful. And then, because I know in the past, mostly because we've requested it, if there's been some outreach, you're like, just give us the dates and times you've been out there, give us a copy of the flyer, so that when we get complaints, we can say, hey, DPW was out this day, this was the area they canvassed, and then we can talk to them about being proactive, or even pump out what you guys are doing to another level.
Yep, and I totally agree with that, and that's one thing we've already discussed even just the other day. We're in a meeting, about moving forward, before Thanksgiving, that reaching out to all the offices, here's the stuff we're handing out, here's some informational stuff for you, because it is a team approach. If you can reach out to your constituents and say, hey, help us out, and that's more messaging. So we will definitely follow up with you, and even moving forward, just see with future storms, we'll be more proactive in reaching out and seeing how we can work together to help all this.
Yeah, and could you send me an updated list of my streets in my district that are the December 1st and March 1st? So when we have, maybe we can help with neighborhood leaders to get the word out, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, we'll also send you all the MPS schools that are available and city lots that are available right now. And we can.
Has that changed?
Well, city lots don't change very often, but periodically they change. We just want to make sure you have the updated information.
That'd be good to know, because it's always been Lincoln, now it's no longer Lincoln. As far as I know, there's no MPS schools that are providing their parking lots for neighbors. And then the only other thing is, that's it.
Alderwoman Taylor.
Yeah, thank you so much. So just real quick, you guys mentioned an exception street, and I'm asking because 7300 West Dean is an apartment building, Sycamore Place. They have no parking I know there's a big lot in the back, but for some reason, I don't know why, but the owner isn't taking care of that lot and they can't park back there. So they're parked on the street. Last year, they had the same problem. So I'm just asking for an exception for those residents and having their cars towed or removed. Now, there is another street around the corner.
We can send you the information on how to officially request an exception street.
Thank
There
you.
is a process that it actually goes through a review process with our infrastructure partners, measuring width of street, and we do a parking study to see how many cars are there and if there are other alternatives. So we'll get you the information to start that process.
I would appreciate that because I did run into a big issue with a lot of towing last year, and I don't want to. When you said you had 98 cars towed, I thought, oh God, now I don't want to have those same calls if we can avoid it. Okay, and there is another street. So when we ask for that exception, there is another street around the corner that's a business street. It's much wider.
Yeah, we'll touch
So we
base
can-
offline.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
that's it.
Yes, sir.
one quick question. Cars didn't move during the last snow operation. They got ticketed. They're gone now. So the cars aren't there, but the area that was there didn't get plowed. What should residents expect?
I'm sorry, I can answer that. Well, number one, if you let me know where those areas are, we can definitely send staff back to try to push that snow back where the cars moved.
Okay.
Any other comment or questions?
One more, Mr. Chair. Just want to say for those listening from District 3, thank you guys so much for sending in questions. And anything that didn't get answered that you sent in today, I'll follow up with DPW staff and get back to you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Thanks to staff.
thank you. So thank you to management team for all the work you're doing as well. We've thanked the workers. And I don't think anybody thought that what was an issue with the snowfall related to the workers, it was the structure. And so that's why I've been restricting my remarks to that. Ms. Rodriguez has always been responsive and open to new ideas, so I appreciate her work there. And I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. Knox has been a great new member of the leadership team, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Hearing and seeing none, the motion is to receive and place on file by Alderman Bauman.
Thank you.
Standing on objection, so ordered.